What's up, guys? Welcome back to Kind of Funny's Christopher Nolan in review. That's right. We are ranking and reviewing every movie directed by Christopher Nolan. As always, I'm Tim Gettys, joined by Andy Cortez.
Good morning, Tim.
Kevin Coelho.
Hey, man.
Nick Scarpino.
What are you laughing at here, Kev? What is the joke that's rattling around in your noggin today?
I mean,
What do you think it is, Nick?
like,
do you think it could be Greg Miller?
But we've been staring at Greg.
Yeah, I know we've been staring at him for a while, but like,
No, you gotta look at me, Murph. Why would you look at me, brother?
Now,
Okay.
Nick, he was just sitting there waiting to be introduced,
Oh,
and you
man,
know
fucking
that
ready
like
to
he
come
was
out of the
fighting
block.
God
everything
bless him.
possible to
Feel
not
like I
laugh.
had about 16 Busans today. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, Murph, we're gonna come out here Friday night. We're gonna get this match done, brother.
I want you in a street fight, Murph. You, me, Triple H, all of D-Generation X.
Great.
Nick, have you had the unfortunate chance to meet Greg on Busan?
Yes, Greg and I did one podcast on Busan last week, and it was transformative. And I, as a caffeine addict, recognized the symptoms, and we're just waiting for him to hit rock bottom, which may or may not be happening as we speak.
Impossible. There's no bottom with Busan. There's only top.
I like how people are calling you the Train to Busan now, which, if you're not familiar at all with that, is on my Netflix queue. I haven't watched it yet, but it's a zombie movie.
It's true. It's really
It's
good.
supposed to be good.
They have an anime. They have an anime prequel on Shudder right now. I'm gonna watch.
Do they really?
Yeah.
Great.
I'm waiting for Jen to just kick your ass out, like at any moment.
I'm waiting for Jen to show up in another
She
space
already slapped
outfit.
me to yell at me. No, so far I'm okay.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is In Review. Every Tuesday and Friday right here live on twitch.tv/kindoffunnygames. We get together to review and rank movies. On Tuesdays, we're doing Christopher Nolan, and on Fridays, we're doing Studio Ghibli Miyazaki in review. We're doing Porco Rosso this Friday, so strap in for that.
Stop making up
I've never
names.
been more
Stop making up
excited
names.
for a movie that I have no idea what the fuck it's about, but it has to be good.
Wait.
I read the little blurb paragraph, and it said that an ace pilot gets turned into his head gets turned into a pig head, and it's supposed to be symbolic of his like not wanting to be a part of the war. And I was like, wow,
Porco
we're
Rosso,
in on
baby.
this.
But we're not talking about that today. Today, we are talking about Interstellar. Thanks to you guys. You can watch the show later on youtube.com/kindafunny or podcast services. Just search for Kinda Funny Reviews and we'll be right there for you. But if you want the show ad-free, you can go to patreon.com/kindafunny, just like our Patreon producer, Mohammed did. Thank you very much for keeping this show going.
Tim,
Interstellar. What's up?
Tim, when you yell, the mic doesn't sound good anymore
Yeah, you're a little echoey to me.
because you're
You get
yelling
that mic
now.
closer
You
to
weren't
you.
yelling when we did tests.
I don't
but
think I'm
you're
yelling.
Well,
I'm using,
hey,
using my speaking voice. I can
it's-
move it closer to me.
Give
just
it a
how
little
used
closer to you. Give it a
Sure,
little
I'm
closer.
going to
But
speak
you-
how I normally speak.
That's
well, I mean,
tasty.
you were yelling a second ago. People have video recordings of it. You and
Oh,
your
Greg.
beautiful blonde
Interstellar
hair.
released
Greg, you're
on
gonna be out in the
November
atmosphere.
5th,
Greg, what are you doing?
2014.
Don't breathe the
Arrested.
ammonia. Don't breathe the ammonia.
by
Wait, why are you
Christopher
wearing-
Nolan.
Why are you wearing dual headphones, Greg?
Because I just switched them, Nick. Use your eyeballs. Maybe don't pick on Nick, or don't pick on Tim, and actually
what?
pay attention to what I'm
I
doing for a
apologize.
change. You know what I mean?
I'm only gonna watch your shot from now on.
Well then, bring it on, Daddy.
Oh, daddy.
No, I'm baby. You're Daddy.
Oh,
Remember?
baby.
I really don't
I like
like
how your,
this.
Oh
I like
my
how your
God.
microphone's hanging out in space like that, bobbing up and down.
Oh,
There's so
Zero
many.
G.
There are
So
so
before-
many threads here. So many.
Before
threads
we
here.
Sorry,
started this, when Greg first showed us this, there was a lot of questions that weren't answered. Like, why is it so dirty?
It's a theme for like the video that he made. He just
Are
need
you
to
not
keep up
familiar
his
with
work.
like yeah like I'm sorry I won't be like you, Tim, all right, and just buy a dime store costume and walk in and say I'm fucking Leonardo, all right? I'm gonna make it look movie accurate. I'm gonna come in here and people are gonna be like, did that man just murder Matthew McConaughey and take his outfit? You know what I mean? Is that Matt Damon there? My eyes aren't as good as they are.
Why'd you
So
say
sorry.
Leonardo?
Andy nailed it though, because
He
like,
likes
his
you
favorite
look
Ninja
less
Turtle.
like an astronaut,
Thank
more
you.
like a motocross guy that like didn't win.
Yeah.
Or
You know
like
what?
the guy
That's
that
just
works in
like-
the pit.
Remember, it's one of those like it's in the eye of the beholder. It's all on the aesthetics. I begged you, Tim, to let me expense some big old black curtains, wall it off here, get me some styrofoam, have Kevin spray paint them gray, put some space rocks over here. Right? Exactly. What did I ask you? Remember, what did I ask you? I said, can you please get me some fishing wire? I need 13-pound test, and then we're gonna hang Portillo behind me and have him float by every so often.
Nick,
and you said
Tim,
no. I won't
just so
approve
you
this
know,
expense.
You gotta go double the weight for the pound, so you'd need at least 26 pound.
But also, I'm willing to pause this podcast right now, come back in a week, in order for our king to be floating behind you the entire time.
I'm sure Corey Cudney can do it in post. Look.
Today we're talking about Interstellar, released on November 5th, 2014, directed by Christopher Nolan, music once again by Hans Zimmer. A little fact here about the music. Composer Hans Zimmer was instructed by Christopher Nolan to make a unique score. It's time to reinvent. The endless string ostinatos need to go by the wayside. The big drums are probably in the bin. Nolan chose not to provide Zimmer with the script or any plot details for writing the film's music, but instead gave the composer a single page that told the story of a father leaving his child for work. It's dope as fuck.
Wow, what a challenge. Nick, it's like when Tim walks up to you and me and's like, hey man, go do something cool and funny. And we're like, okay, challenge. It's like it's on the same level, you know what I mean?
It is definitely on the same level.
Yeah.
I mean, to be clear, I don't think I've ever said that. I'm just like, just do something. And
It's
you
true.
still
I've heard
missed
him
the
say,
point.
just do something. Well, she was disappointed too, so it's perfect.
I will say, and on a serious note, the music in this is unbelievably stunning. I think that like this movie is my favorite by far Nolan film for all of the reasons that we're probably going to talk about. But the music to me is just so perfectly haunting, and the fact that it is just that big cathedral organ the entire time, and it's never hopeful ever. Like there's never a point where he's about to do a maneuver where he's about to crest the event horizon of a black hole and you're like, I think this is going to work out pretty okay for him. It's just that haunting like simple score that just goes so beautiful with the visuals of this movie.
It is so existential. Like it is just, I'm filled with dread the whole time, but I'm also like crying and kind of happy. Like
you're inspired.
Again, guys, just go play Outer Wilds. I'm telling you guys, this this movie just makes you feel every feeling possible. And I was thankful to have watched it at Tim's last night, and it was an experience.
There was a moment when they go into the wormhole that me, Joey, and Gio went to the bathroom at the worst fucking time. But me, Joey, and Andy, we had a moment together. It was a fucking lot, man.
Like I feel like we all like should have held hands, and we
totally.
Were, like, just like looking at it was intense, dude. It was so good.
There are so many moments. There's so many moments in this movie that like really get me, and they really really move me. The first is when he runs out of that. He's like, Murph, we gotta fix this before I leave. Like, please don't let me leave like this. And she doesn't want him to go. So the only power she has is to like not talk to him. And then she realizes all too soon this might be the last time she gets to say goodbye to her father. And as she runs out, we see that shot on the side of his car as he's leaving his house, and it's mirrored perfectly as she like runs out and screams for her father, but he can't hear her. And then the next shot we see
and the countdown's
is that
beginning.
it's the countdown, but then it's that shot's mirrored in him leaving the Earth, like the shot from like on top of the actual rocket. We're seeing the rings of the rocket fall off, and it's just so unbelievably powerful for me. It gets me like I can't talk for like 10 minutes after that scene every single time.
Why didn't the grandpa just call him, tell him to stop? Instead, he like grabs the daughter and he's like, "No, don't chase after."
Kevin, they were
I think
wasting
he had to go.
breath.
I think he had to go.
No
Time's
one
a
has to go
resource.
with that urgency.
Well,
Earth's
keep in
running
mind,
out of
like first off, shout out to John Lithgow. But secondly, like, it's not fixed, right? Even though she chases after him there, like, she still doesn't forgive him going forward. So, like, she still is bitter that he left and still is all the stuff. So he stops her there. And I think also there's probably some of that in the how hard it is on him, right? Like, do you really want to get in his head? Do you want to keep stopping? Exactly. Do you want to keep the Band-Aid's been ripped off? We've left it how we left it. Like, again, and I also think there's part of that too of where even though they don't know when he's coming back, they assume if he's coming back, it'll be sooner rather than later.
And there's always the possibility of video chats and stuff like that too, or like his other son, obviously, like he thought. I think the grandfather was like, "We'll keep the peace, we'll let him go, and then in a week or whatever, she'll do a video and they'll talk and it'll be fine." Except she never did. And
McConaughey holding back tears always gets me.
God,
It's
every
so
fucking
I know
time.
it's been memed the shit out of, but like those scenes are so fucking powerful. Did he win
when he
an
comes
Oscar
off
for
of
this?
Miller's. I think he won an Oscar
So-
for Dallas Buyers Club, but not for this.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, he
I
was
could be wrong,
really
Tim.
good in that too.
Doesn't seem like he did, but the movie did win a whole bunch of things. So keeping on with the facts here, sticking with the music stuff. Several tracks of Hans Zimmer's original score were recorded at a tempo of a beat per second, so 60 beats per minute, precisely matching the passage of time, a recurring theme in the movie. And there's a couple of moments I pointed out to Andy that, especially when they're on Miller's planet, where time is such a important thing to them, where the tension is so much higher because you hear the like tick 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 of the music. So freaking cool. A budget of $165 million, box office of $699.5 million. But that's not all the money that they made from this. They made money in some surprising ways, you guys.
They had
For
a
corn
space
field
tie-in.
scene,
Orange
Christopher
spaces.
Nolan sought to grow 500 acres of corn, which he learned was feasible from his producing of Man of Steel. So some good came from
Wait,
Man of
what?
Steel. The corn was then sold and actually made a profit.
Oh, so he actually grew the corn for the shots in the movie, and then
Mhm.
they sold the corn. That's genius.
Yeah,
That's such an
kinda
interesting
crazy.
thing. Like, it wouldn't have been cheaper to just even buy a house on a cornfield? You know?
Well, I don't
That's
know.
a lot of this seems like a lot of effort, Kevin. I'm with
Yeah.
you. Like it
I
sort of
feel
reminds
like-
it reminds me of when people like shave their beard and then have to regrow it for shots later, or I always think about how long do they have to wait, but in this case they have to wait for
the
like the
corn to
right
grow.
season to grow corn. That's crazy.
Well, you have to imagine, like, instead of like, I don't know, maybe he had farmers come plant it, and then they needed access to that land for a couple of months, and they wouldn't be able to like actually make it tenable. But whatever it was, the shots of the farm are some of the coolest in the whole film. And like, I love how it's mirrored at the end where he's like, they bring him back to the house.
Yeah.
And they have that one little in joke where like she's like, my father loved farming. He's like, you told him that I love farming, and she just laughs. They just have that wonderful. I mean, the movie is so just perfectly done, in my opinion. Like the very first few shots we see these old people telling the stories of the blight and like how everything was a dust bowl basically, and you don't really know. They're kind of like out of time. You don't know when this is being told or how it's being told, and it's only until the end of the movie where you realize that that's actually Murph like telling the story of like her father and how he went away and how she had to figure out all this stuff. It's so freaking cool.
So fun facts there. So old Murph has the first and last lines of dialogue in the movie. Just a fun piece of trivia. But the cooler thing is, besides old Murph, all the other people in the documentary style interviews are actual real people. That was real footage from a real Ken Burns documentary called The
really?
Dust Bowl.
yeah, that's cool.
So sticking with the practicality that we were talking about, like so much of this, especially for the IMAX shots, they wanted to be as practical as possible. So a lot of the stuff was, I'm blanking on the word right now, but figurines and shit, miniatures. For the space stuff. But in the Earth stuff with all the farms and stuff, they wanted it to actually be a real location and trying to not have it be like on studios, like fake rooms and stuff, to really like have a lived in feel. And the giant dust clouds were created on location using large fans to blow celluloid-based synthetic dust through the air, so that the actors were really acting against it. That's not terrifying.
First off, I didn't realize
all
that
getting
was
black
old
hole.
Murph. I never realized that. So that's really, really cool.
You didn't realize what?
I never realized I was old Murph.
Oh yeah.
I just thought it was old lady number 3 in the credits. or
No,
whatever.
the actress, I think her name is Ellen Bernstein or Bernstein.
Bernstein, I think. Yeah, Bernstein.
Bernstein. And it's funny because I see her, I was like, oh, I remember thinking in the theaters, I was like, oh, that's interesting. They got her for that. And then at the end, I'm like, that makes a lot more sense. She's a really, really notable actor to have just randomly have a cameo.
Pop up in the front to talk about her dad liking farming.
So the documentary style interviews of older survivors shown at the beginning of this movie, and again on the television playing in the farmhouse towards the end of the movie, are from Ken Burns' The Dust Bowl, made in 2012. They're real survivors, not actors, of that natural disaster.
That's cool.
And speaking of Murph, Murph's name is said 79 times in this movie.
Murph. I love it because it reminds me of RoboCop every time he says it. Murphy.
To get through the last rigmarole shit, at the 87th Academy Awards, the film won Academy Award for Best Visual Effects and was nominated for Best Original Score, Best Sound Mixing, Best Sound Editing, and Best Production Design, but did not win them. Runtime of 2 hours, 45 minutes.
It's sad to me that it didn't get nominated. Did you say it didn't get nominated for cinematography, right? It just got for visual effects? Because I think Wally Pfister's work in this
for visual
is...
effects.
Oh, one for visual. Well, I think the cinematography in this is the best in any Nolan film. Period. It's shot very straightforward, which I think is on purpose. But man, the moments where we just sort of it cuts out to the wider shots. There's one moment specifically where we see the ship, the tiny little ship floating through like space, and then you see Saturn behind it, and it's just such a simple like simply composed shot. But it works so well, and it's such a lovely homage to like 2001: A Space Odyssey. Like this movie evokes all of those emotions from all these classic deep sci-fi films without being as, and this is no disrespect to 2001: A Space Odyssey, but like without being super drawn out and almost borderline boring. Like there are moments where you're like, let's just exist in this. Similar to how we talk when we talk about like Miyazaki films, we're like, we're just going to take a moment to show you something, and that something is going to be this amazing environment.
One of my favorite moments in like movie theaters happened in this film, and it was a moment very similar where it's just it's like a shot of black, and all you see is the little spaceship drifting. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I think that's what I was just talking about.
I don't think Saturn was. It doesn't matter.
Either
but
way,
like,
it's a tiny little spaceship, and
Yeah.
it might be when they float in front of the wormhole for the first time or something. But you just see
I mean, it
like, this
happens a
little
thousand
speck.
times.
right. Anyway, but in the movie theaters, like the audio cuts to silence, and I remember because we watched this in 70mm, hearing the projector
IMAX.
just was
Yeah,
such a
just-
like weird thing that I hadn't heard at this point for so many years, and it was like really really cool. Just the audio cutting out.
They use a lot of really the sound design of this movie is amazing as well, and they do one of my favorite things, which is when we go outside, you can't hear anything, like the sound just isn't there, and occasionally you'll hear like the dull drum of something like you would hear from inside the ship, like it's a little bit there. So they play with sound so wonderfully here, and like it's just such a like the thing that stands out is always that time when like Matt Damon's talking and he's monologuing and he's clicking switches and he's halfway through a sentence, just goes, and he's just done. And then it cuts to the outside. It's just like explosions, but it's just a terrible visual with no sound. It's fucking horrifying.
What an awesome moment that is, where he's about to start on this bullshit monologue, where he's gonna be like, "Oh, basically, I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing it," and just
boom, done. Fuck you. What a great role. Like, by the way, did anyone, when you guys saw this the first time, do you have any idea Matt Damon was in this movie?
No,
No
no
one
way.
did.
They pulled him out of the thing, and I was like, that guy looks a lot like. Oh my god, that's Matt Damon. Why would
Matt
he just
Damon.
randomly be in this
Was
movie?
this pre or post Martian?
I think this is pre.
Okay.
Yeah, this was pre because this was 2014. And yeah, I was reading a thing. I didn't write it down for the trivia because it wasn't that interesting. But pretty much, he was gonna turn down The Martian because he's like, I like literally just did this.
Yeah.
And Ridley Scott, the director of that, was just like, dude, they're different fucking movies. And he was just like, all right, fine, that's fair. So he ended up doing both of them. But Nolan made a big effort to make sure that this wasn't spoiled. That like they wanted that to be a moment for the audience of just like, what the fuck? And not really knowing if he was a good guy or a bad guy. And like, that's the thing is like, I was telling Andy, this is my second time seeing this movie. Like, his turn of being a bad guy is so clear when you know it's happening. But when I first watched the movie, I didn't know.
Yeah,
I
you feel it. You feel something's wrong with
Something's
it.
wrong. Why
not
is this
that way the
robot
first
torn
time.
apart? Why is this robot all torn up? Why is it? Yeah, exactly.
I was just distracted by like how much other plot was going on the first
Sure.
time.
Oh no, totally.
So,
totally. It
so this
works.
time when you know that it's coming, there are so many different signs that are just like leading to it. And it's just like it's awesome that you're so gripped by the movie that I'm sitting here like, Matthew McConaughey, man, come on, just like fucking see the signs. But it's like it's cool that even though I know what's happening, it's like I feel like I want to help the character.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and that moment is so beautifully crafted where, again, I always relate moments like this to the step scene in Game of Thrones before the whole thing explodes and there's the wildfire and then they go back to the cathedral area or whatever the fuck. Like, I always compare moments like that to this just because it's like the one moment that I always remember. But just, Matt Damon talking to McConaughey as they're making that long trek down, and you're starting to get sort of like weird dialogue from Matt Damon, and it's starting to sound really eerie. And then it always cuts back to Romley working on the robot, and like something's up with this robot. Why the fuck? It needs a human touch to be reactivated, is what Matt Damon said.
Man.
I just love the way it keeps on shifting back between all those moments. It's so like something's about to happen, and it's not going to be good.
But then you
awful.
hear Matt Damon talking, and one of the things that's terrifying about it is that there's a small party that's like, I kind of empathize with this guy. Like, I don't agree with what he's doing, but like he's talking, he has those moments where he's like, I really thought I was ready to die. When I set off on this, I thought I was ready to die, but it never occurred to me. It didn't even occur to me for 1 second that mine wasn't the planet. And he goes, and I knew within like 5 minutes of landing here.
That's
that
what gets me. It's
wasn't
like
mine.
as soon as I got here, I knew it wasn't the planet. And I'm like, oh my god, to get there after so much travel, so much pressure, so much everything, you get there and immediately know, like, fuck, this isn't it.
Dude,
Yeah.
who knew that Matt Damon was such a good actor? When they wake him up and he immediately starts sobbing and
crying,
folding,
yeah.
it's just
he's
like
great.
you understand, especially after the second viewing, you understand that like he thought he was dead that last time he put himself in that thing.
Yeah,
And
Well,
here
not
he
even
is.
that
The
too, right?
final
It's on the second view. This is my second viewing of Interstellar as well, and it's when he wakes up. It's that obviously, that he thought he'd never see anybody, but then also wrestling with the reality, right? That he brought these people here to die as well.
to die.
Like, you know what I mean? Like he's because he didn't come to that planet as a bad guy, right?
Yeah,
It's
and it turned
it's the solitude, and it's the failure, and it's the loneliness, and it's the abject, face of death in front of you.
he has that great line where he's like, "I resisted pushing that button so many times."
For so long.
Exactly.
Yeah. He's like, I knew if I just pushed it, someone would come maybe one day.
God,
But you know what? The sad thing is, all he would have had to do is be like, "Hey guys, quick thing. This is not the planet. Let's go to Edmund's planet.
Fucked up. Let's
just
go.
pop
Let's
up
leave."
and go to Edmund's
And it would have
planet.
been like, I mean, it wouldn't be fine, but like,
Yeah.
they're there at that point.
But they kind of do that though, right, Nick? Because it is that he starts breaking it to them, and he's like, "Well, there's others," and he's like, "Well, no, the situation we're in. This is it. You were our last stop." And that's when I think.
Well, yeah, because they talk about their fuel reserves.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
they-
He's like, yeah.
Well, it was the last
pulled-
stop if they wanted to go. If Matt McConaughey wanted to go back.
Right.
But so he could have been like, "Hey, sorry, this isn't the planet." And then what were they going to do? Like, well, we have to go forward. So, but I guess he didn't know that at the time. But and very conflicted. My question was like, how are you going to explain this to everyone? But I guess if the plan was just to go to Edmund's planet and start a colony where you are like a god to all these small, like 5,000 small children, like you could just paint whatever narrative you wanted, right?
Horrible.
I don't know.
5,000 small children.
Yeah.
That does sound pretty terrible.
That
Yeah.
seems terrible.
It's a lot of
Man,
lot of
what a
poop on weird
horrible,
planet.
like, how that would be so hard, right? To like recolonize a planet with what did they say they were going to do? Like, we're going to do like
10, I think.
10
they said.
first and then start and then keep.
exponentially increase.
Yeah, man, that's crazy.
That's no fun. Nobody would want that. Nobody would want that life. Paul especially.
don't.
See.
Keep me at home.
Yeah.
She's
Let's
out
do
of
some
that.
drugs.
Like,
You know what I
Dude,
mean? Like,
shout out to
Greg,
the
do you go
robots,
like
though.
I'm gonna get in this pod and sleep for 20 years, and the odd chance that I might die on another planet, or do you just go break out the margaritas right now? Let's just have a party. Let's make some alcohol out of corn and go.
well, that's exactly what you're describing. Is why they don't tell everybody that the planet's fucking
Exactly.
dead. Because
Like,
everyone, and next to everybody would pick that. It was just like,
Pandemonium.
fuck it, let's burn this down. Let's burn this place
Real
down.
quick, the guy that dies and the dies when the other Kip or whatever explodes.
Romley.
What's his name? Romley.
Romulan.
I just want to right now nominate him for MVP because like his life sucked.
The guy that had to
when-
spend 23 years in a space
By
station by
himself.
himself with
When they get
machines.
back to it, when they
And
get
not,
back up
like,
there
go
and he's
insane.
old and they look at him and he talks and geez, man, it's insane.
Such a great
Where-
moment.
He's like,
He's
why?
so- he
Not
was-
only that, he then explodes because some asshole rigged the
Yeah.
thing that like he was about to explain to everyone. You know?
Dude, so I was saying earlier, the robots are so dope, and I love their voices are so great. All the bits of them, it's the comedic relief this movie definitely needs to like lower the tension because it's always at a 10. I'm not familiar with the people that are the voice actors, Bill Irwin and
So
Josh Stewart.
Bill Irwin's been in a bunch of stuff.
And a bunch of stuff. Yeah, Bill Irwin's actually, I just sat my wife down because we've been going through like this 80s anthology of movies that I picked for her. And one of the movies we watched was My Blue Heaven. And he plays Rick Moranis' like buddy fellow FBI agent in it. He's always really, really funny, like side character comic relief.
Yeah.
Which is when I heard that voice, I was like, who is that? I looked him up. I was like, what an interesting casting choice. Because that guy is always just a silly goofball, like
he's a
weird
character
comic
actor,
relief.
right?
Yeah,
he's
very
like a
character.
Steven Tobolowsky or whatever when he popped up
Exactly.
in Memento.
Corporal
And you're like,
Rose.
oh, it's that guy. You know what I mean? He's one of those that guy kind of people.
Yeah,
I,
I thought he
uh,
did such a killer job in this.
Oh,
and,
totally.
And the
just the
other
way,
guy-
like Andy
sorry.
brought up a really good point. Tell him, Andy, about the robots.
Oh yeah, just sort of like in the beginning when they arrive at NASA and they don't know that it's NASA and they're sort of captured or whatever, and then immediately Tars is talking to Matthew McConaughey and sort of interrogating, "What are you doing here?" Blah blah blah, and it takes like 10, maybe 6 lines of dialogue to completely normalize what the hell these robots are.
Sure.
And it's just such a perfect job because you see this thing, it's like, what, this robot is talking to McConaughey in this world? Like, wow, this is kind of bizarre. And then immediately he's like, yeah, you're ex-military. Yeah, I should put you, you're not a, Marines don't exist anymore. Like, immediately they totally, these robots feel real and lived in, and they exist in this world, and it's all done so convincingly.
They're
really
what I love about
contextualized
him
so
is I
well,
think-
and I love that. Like, not only are they funny and they have the lines of dialogue and all the percentages of emotions and all of that stuff. Like, I think that the way that they're designed is so just off-putting and lame. Where you're just like, it's just a big refrigerator looking thing. But then to see throughout the movie them accomplish different tasks, and especially like saving Anne Hathaway on the water planet and things like that. Like, their designs were so practically creative, like that's the cool thing. It's like it's definitely function over fashion with these guys. And a cool fact I got here is the majority of shots of the robot Tars were not computer generated. Rather, Tars was a practical puppet controlled and voiced on set by Bill Irwin, who was then digitally erased from the movie. Irwin also puppeteered the robot Case, but in that instance he had his voice dubbed over by Josh Stewart. So you can imagine Nick, Bill Irwin just behind there.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I just
I
showed
would
it.
hate
Your
it.
puppet
Did you-
shit.
Well,
Well,
would hate it.
one of the
It's
things that I
right
really
there.
appreciate
What-
is
just-
that they so like as opposed to some of the other sci-fi movies that you'd see where the robots just have sort of a monotone tone the entire time, he made a choice to actually have them be in the scene. So like when there's moments where he's trying to dock, Bill Irwin's like screaming with them, like, Cooper, like don't do, like he's like, if I black out in there, and they're all in that scene together where the energy is there, as opposed to if like Matthew McConaughey were yelling and you'd hear like the Hal voice from 2001 where it's like, everything's going to be okay, Dave. So it definitely changes the sort of the tone of the scenes, and you feel like there are a lot more members of the team. I think, if I'm not mistaken, the guy that played Case, by the way, I think I looked him up, but I didn't go that far down the rabbit hole, and we can do it real quick. But I think he's the guy from Dark Knight Rises who's like, no, brother, one of us has to stay behind. Does the fire rise? The fire rises. I did it.
I don't know. I never looked
No,
up
that's what,
that
the
guy.
chat already said that. They
No, did they say that?
it was
sick.
one of Bane's
Oh wow,
henchmen,
look at the
yeah.
robot, Kevin. This is cool.
Yeah, isn't this rad?
This is awesome.
When we were initially like shown these guys, I was like, what a dumb design. And at one point in Miller's planet, when he's going to save Anne Hathaway, he does the rolling as an asterisk.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah,
just
it's
looks
fucking-
so fucking rad.
Yeah,
Well, I also
that's
love
the
that.
moment
It's okay.
that
Go ahead,
Tim's
Rick.
talking about. I think that I was going to talk about too. Just like I think when you first get introduced to these guys, you're like, what a weird, dumb design. And then when he is like, when McConaughey turns to him and he goes, Tars, go get her, and he turns into that asterisk, you're like, holy shit, and then picks her up and runs back a different way. That's also
Yeah.
super fast.
Gallops.
Yeah,
Sort of gallops. You know?
yeah.
The way the character the designs break down from like big blocks to really, really smaller blocks. Like there's a moment where he goes, if I black out, you have to control this. And so one of his arms comes out, and then a smaller one, and then a smaller one, and then a smaller one to grab the joystick.
Yeah.
And you're like, what a fucking weird way to think about
So
going
rad.
about a robot. But it's
It's
cool.
it's impossible, Coop. No. Yeah, but it's necessary.
Yeah,
oh my god.
yeah.
Get out of here. I love that because Tim and I had the exact same thing. Like Tim said it while I was thinking of like, this is the most Dominic Toretto shit ever.
Let's
dude.
fucking go. Man. Let's.
But I also
fucking
love
go.
that he gets to go on one last adventure with Tars. Like the last thing we see is for the
Oh,
two
yeah.
characters is them settling in. Tars kind of goes into the back of the pilot seat and then pops up like he's the co-pilot. I'm like, fuck
Yeah.
yeah, dude! Adventures of Cooper and Tars.
And he set his new honesty settings and trust settings and all that jazz. Like
Yeah, I love that.
That was the funniest running joke of the whole thing, right? Of like McConaughey talking to Anne Hathaway being too honest, the robot being at 90% honesty.
Yeah.
Then I love the line where we keep talking about though, in the very scene you're talking about though, right? Where they're racing Matt Damon back to the platform and they're like, he's gonna be able to dock. Well, not without the thing. He's like, what's that trust settings at? What's that trust setting at again, Tars? And he's like, apparently less than yours.
A lot lower than yours. Yeah. That was smart.
Yeah, the
So,
movie's brilliant, dude. The movie's
This little
fucking brilliant.
science with Kev stuff here. So earlier in pre-production, Dr. Kip Thorne laid down 2 guidelines to strictly follow. Nothing would violate established physical laws, and that's all the wild speculations. And that all the wild speculations would spring from science and not from creative minds of a screenwriter. Writer, producer, director Christopher Nolan accepted these terms as long as they did not get in the way of the making of the movie. That did not prevent clashes, though. At one point, Thorne spent 2 weeks talking to Nolan out of an idea about traveling faster than light. He said, it's not possible, so we can't do that. We need to stick to the science. According to Dr. Kip Thorne, the largest degree of creative license in this movie are actually the clouds on the ice planet, which are structures that probably go beyond the material strength which ice would be able to support.
Yeah, they'd fall.
That's just dope as fuck.
Yeah.
The method of space travel in this movie is based on physicist Dr. Kip Thorne's works, which were the basis for the method of space travel in Carl Sagan's novel Contact and the resulting movie adaptation. It also starred Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah.
And
All
the
right,
dismantled robot on the ice planet has the designation Kip, which is reference to the executive producer, Dr.
that's
Kip
cool.
Thorne,
Yeah.
who also wrote a book called The Science of Interstellar.
This movie
Super goes into all this shit.
This movie does what I think the best type of sci-fi should do, is that the second I left the theater, I was like, I have a bunch of questions and I'm going to Google those questions. And I'm fairly certain I'm not going to understand the answers, but it makes me want to. It makes me want to learn more about black holes and wormholes and the science behind all that. And like, I just remember like, this is one of those movies I wish I saw with Kevin, where I'm like, let's just sit and smoke a pack of fucking menthols right now and just talk about all of that science in this movie, because it's so deep.
It's interesting you had that reaction, because I told Tim when I watched this movie in Austin, I saw it in a normal theater, then I saw it in IMAX because I knew it had to be an IMAX movie review.
Oh yeah.
And I just remember driving down I-35 in Austin, just contemplating my existence on this planet and like what is all this. And I just went through the most like weird shit where I just like totally dazed out for like hours, it felt like, because this movie just made me kind of freak out a little bit or like not a little bit but a lot. It's incredible.
Yeah, I loved it way more this time than the first time I watched it. I enjoyed it the first time, but I was always kind of like, whatever. And I think a lot of that had to do. I think a lot of that had to do with the things that I loved about this is the scale and the awe-inspiring moments and the audio-visual kind of trip that you go on. And when we watched it, it was back when there was all those audio issues with it. So a lot of the bass was distracting and like things were like really fucked up. So I kind of left it being like, well, the thing that is like most lauded about this movie was kind of like whatever. So it kind of took me out of it and allowed me to focus on the things I didn't like that much about it. And this time a lot of those things were solved, so I enjoyed it a lot more. But I still stand where it's like, to me, this is number 2 behind Inception. And I think a lot of that has to do with the Inception never hits the highs of the scale of this movie, like we talked about going into the black hole, even just being on Miller's planet and it just being just calm and they're in this water. It's such a weird world they created, and then the wave comes and how big it is and the way that they deal with all of that and just the escalation of this movie is so fantastic, of the rises and falls. But once we get to the end and it like pretty much the library thing, it's just silly as shit, and it's just it's hard for me to kind of like move past that. Because I start asking so many questions, and I get that that's what the movie's for, but I don't really like that. Like, I don't like that it's kind of answered by, who sent you here? Them. Who's them? Us. Okay. You're just supposed to just understand. Well now like, space and time don't fucking matter. So yeah, it's one of those things where they create enough rules that are based in science, and this all could be possible, and I get that, and that's fine. But to me, it just kind of feels like we talked about Prestige and Inception both as kind of like having these moments of just like, all right, well, now they're just making shit up to kind of like answer any questions and nicely tie a bow on it. And I think that this is the most egregious of that literally have a solution that can just solve anything, where he sends himself back in time to give Murph this message is like cool as fuck, but
see, that's theoretically possible. Whereas like I disagree with you, where I think Inception, like one of the reasons I love this movie so much is because the majority of it is grounded in science, and it might not be science that I understand, but it's science that's theoretically possible. Whereas a lot of the stuff in Inception is just like, it doesn't when they explain the rules of it, you're like, that's cool, but this kind of comes off like it's a Marvel comic, not like necessarily something that Carl Sagan would write. And I love all of the smaller things in this, and I love the concept of like, you won't be able to understand what a fifth dimensional being is. You don't understand how quantum mechanics works. We don't understand these things. All we know is that someone somewhere, it might be us from billions of years into the future, have completed this loop where we're not living in linear time anymore, and the only thing we could do to think to like help us at this moment was to create this sort of tesseract. And by the way, come on, Tim, they use the fucking word tesseract. Come on, it's
in the MCU.
It's in the MCU.
But that's my thing, is like he goes into the black hole, and then from then on, we're just supposed to just, the only answer is like he's helping find himself. Like, how does he end up in that library from the black hole?
Well, no, I mean, it's all set up. Like,
yeah, it's a
I get it. It's just like it just seems so just like it's coincidentals. Not even it. It's just like, yeah, it's designed, and I'm like,
it is design. That's the thing. It is design.
Yeah, no, I get it. Yeah. I'm like, that to me is kind of just like, all right, fine.
I'm kind of with Tim.
Go
ahead.
I was just saying, I feel like it's so buttoned up, in which it's like, yeah, Tim, like like they're literally saying future alien or
future us, right? It's future human civilization.
I feel like that matters less, where it's like, look,
sure,
this 5-dimensional aliens know that they want to change something in this time, and they found the point where it needs to be and put everything in motion to lead to this thing, you know?
I think if I totally understand, it is buttoned up to a point that makes it not interesting to me. Not engaging.
See, I love the idea of it here, because my interpretation, and perhaps it's wrong, but was that because they talk when McConaughey is talking about it, right? He's like, it's us, just not us yet, kind of thing. Yeah. Which to me is that it's not that they knew something that they figured out in the past. They wanted to change something. It's in this moment we knew that this is where we needed to change things. So everybody who's going forward with Murph's work in the science and whatever new NASA is studying to figure out how to do this. And X number of years in the future, hundreds of years in the future, they finally figure it out and like, we got it. Let's go back. Let's do the black hole. Let's do the library. Pick him up at these coordinates. Put him in the library so he gives the message and continues. Yeah, it's totally a conundrum, right? Or that's not what I'm looking for.
Yeah, it's like a time paradox almost. It's
paradox, yeah, right. Where it's like what we're talking about with like Bill and Ted, right? Of like, we'll come back and put the keys here, and the keys are there, and like even Back to the Future, like people, John Connor and all this stuff. It's all that kind of movie time travel
theory
stuff
that we've talked about before, where it's like nobody like how does the loop start if it always involved, someone putting the black hole there.
Again, if time's no longer linear and we perceive it wrong, or or they figure out that gravity is this other dimension.
Right. I'm kind of with Tim, where I think that there are a lot of cheesy elements in this movie. I think the love, I can communicate with love, like all that sort of stuff is really, really cheesy and kind of heavy-handed. But I am still always extremely impressed by the fact that somebody can concept this and put this together.
I know,
and I still remember at the end of it thinking like, God damn, like I don't know, this is my favorite Nolan movie, but it still gets me every time. And even though I know it's cheesy, it still gets me, and it's really weird.
Here's my thing is, I don't think it is cheesy. I think, and I'll just right now talk about the love specifically. I think when Anne Hathaway initially presents it, and this is on my first viewing and even my second viewing, because I kind of forgot. I remembered where we were going, but not how we got there exactly. When she does the whole thing of like, no, I can feel, and maybe this is a cross-dimensional, cross-whatever thing, and we don't. I remember both times being like, yeah, no, I wouldn't vote for this plan. Let's go get the other guy, right? But then to get to the end and see it tied up of like, oh, fuck, maybe it is an actual thing of this weird pull of what love is or what we call love. And when we think of like the pink fucking hearts and hard eyes and all this shit, it gets really cheesy to think about it. But then to have it introduced as this, what if it was this different idea? What if it was this different force in the universe that, has been co-opted into Valentine's Day and fucking flowers and shit like that. But at its core is this, listen, I know this sounds weird, and I know this is not the right thing to say, but like I do believe this. I like that a lot in the end.
Yeah, but wait, man, the reaching out moment, the reaching out to Anne Hathaway when that
first handshake
comes back around, Jesus Christ! Like little small things like that, I'm such a sucker for in movies, and I know that they are put there to intentionally kind of make you go, whoa, this is crazy, but like it still happens to me. Like I can't deny how fucking awesome those moments are.
The whole movie is about like they talk about gravity, right? Where gravity is this one force that can transcend space-time, where it can go anywhere. We don't really understand it, and we're trying to figure out how it works in order to save the humanity. And the idea that there's other forces like that, one of them being love, that can connect us like through something that we don't understand, to me is so freaking cool. And that theme plays out so beautifully. And to be fair, like any visual construct they were going to do in that third act was going to not be as cool as the rest of it, because it's kind of the payoff for everything. And I kind of agree with Tim, where it's like could have been better, but whatever, it kind of works what it needs to work. But I think the most important thing is when he realizes, he's like, holy shit, this whole thing's not about me. The whole thing, the whole reason this thing was set in motion, where I put myself on this, was to be able to tell Murphy these things that I'm going to encode in this watch, because it's all about her. And that's so beautifully backed up when he sets it up at the beginning, where he's like, your mother and I had a conversation where we're just the ghosts of our children's future, or however he set that up. And that it turns out to be that, where he is literally physically her ghost, and he's just doing whatever he can, sacrificing himself and putting himself in this horribly perilous situation, just because he knows that her future is the one that matters. His doesn't matter anymore. And him, like the theme of him metaphorically and physically being the ghost, I was like, every time that shit happens, I start crying. I'm like, this is so powerful. It's so beautifully done.
Yeah,
powerful is a good word for this movie.
Yeah, that the library scene is just another scene where I would have loved to have been in the room when these artists and Nolan are concepting this, and just like it looks just like all these weird ribbons and stuff, but then it eventually becomes like these threads, the threads of time. Like it's just fucking nuts to me. It's so cool.
Books.
How about when it starts folding in on itself, and he's like, I think we're done. I think we did it. And it just like, he looks off and it just starts folding in. And he's like, well, shit, what happens now? And he has that one moment where he's like he breathes in deep because he doesn't know what's going to happen. And then it cuts to the silence of him just floating out. And we see the two little lights and the Rangers coming from Saturn. I'm like, fuck. They're like, Tim, we found you with 3 minutes left of air. I'm like, bro.
Oh, Tim, whenever you show the scene again to Gia, Just let me know and I'll go over just for those like 2 minutes.
I think we're gonna pull it up tonight
Because he wanted to re-show GA. He's like, no, but we need to bump it. Like it needs to be really loud, but we can't do it. It's a little bit too late or whatever.
Yeah.
But goddamn, I mean, that moment gets me every like I don't think I breathed or like made a move in all of the black hole sequence where I was just sitting there kind of like. I remember watching Saved by Ryan in theaters, being a little kid, and the beaches of Normandy, and just sort of sitting there and being like, "Oh my god, this is the most intense thing ever!" And you feel that because you don't know. Like, even though I've seen the movie, I still have this feeling of I don't know what the fuck is on this other side, and how brave do you have to be to just go through a wormhole?
do that.
It's
especially
incredible.
The second time when he ditches Anne Hathaway and he just goes, and then it just gets that point of I forget the word,
sand hitting you and shit?
When he's just the sand stuff, but when it just goes to blackness, like just straight up, like there's just nothing around him. It's just what was your plan, bro? Like you lucked the fuck out that you had future you to come help you, because like Jesus Christ, like that could have just ended horribly.
Well, I mean that that was the only way to try to keep Plan A alive. You know what I mean? Because if he had left with Anne Hathaway, it would only be Plan B at this point, and
Kevin,
and like that's too much for him. You know.
Yeah. Kevin, it looks like your hair is really, really long, but it's just something
amazing.
behind your head.
It's the chair.
It's your jacket.
It's getting long. Wait, real quick.
I was gonna say I love that scene as well, because he's doing what he can do, which is just like he's trying to get whatever data he possibly can into like whatever the flight recorder or whoever's listening. So he's like, I sparks, and he's just describing whatever he can see. But Matthew McConaughey does such a great job of just being like, I'm trying to keep my cool and stay professional and remember my training, but I am freaking the fuck out and I do not understand what's happening. And then you hear eject, 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 and I go, don't fucking eject.
Why would you eject?
Where are you gonna go? What are you doing? And then he ejects, and it's just
oh
god, fuck,
it's
good.
So good, dude. It's so fucking good.
There's also something that I love, that they're constantly like Man talks about, you know why we couldn't send robots to do this, because like they're not good at improvising. They don't have
instinct.
And we see that when they're trying to find a way to send the message. But we also, Matthew McConaughey has the moment where he's like, that's why they needed us. Like he's talking about the interdimensional, multidimensional beings not being able to find that moment in time or understand how to translate this message through the thing, and that's why they needed someone from like the current understanding.
A contemporary.
Just, like, something so cool about that in my mind.
Like robots can't have fear. Like humans have fear that can lead them to humans have that thing that allows them to like get scared and like pee their pants,
survive,
which would cause them to need a new pair of underwear. Ladies and gentlemen, this episode is brought to you by MeUndies. MeUndies wants to talk about your underwear. Like seriously, they have a lot of feelings about it and want to chat with anyone who will listen. So here it goes. MeUndies just wants everyone to feel comfy as heck with the freedom to express themselves. That's why they make the world's softest undies in classic colors and fun prints like dinos and surfboards. Whatever you put on every day, they want you to be comfortable.
I'm wearing dinos.
You got them dinos, Andy?
Yeah, I'm wearing them
right
now.
Good job, man. Is your undie drawer something to be proud of or a little embarrassed by? How much more fun would it be to get dressed every day if you knew you got to pick from a drawer full of them, full of fun and adorable undie prints like orcas, bees, or cherries? Kevin, what you rocking?
Kevin probably.
I just got
They're
gray.
flamingos. They're flamingos.
You got them flamingos?
Can you not see, Tim? I'm showing you.
Oh, I can't see. Sorry. I don't see you right now.
I see
Oh, there you go.
I was showing you. I wanted you to tell the kids.
There we go. You can keep your undie drawer stocked with the MeUndies membership, a subscription that sends new pairs right to your door. Plus, you get site-wide savings and exclusive sales. A pretty big deal, guys. They now have T-shirts. I ordered one yesterday.
Wow.
Well, they've had T-shirts forever. I've been wearing them forever. But they now have T-shirts that are made of the same material that the undies are made of. The micromodal fabric. And I cannot wait to put this on my body. You can get 50% off your first order, free shipping, and 100% satisfaction guarantee by going to MeUndies.com/morning. That's MeUndies.com/morning to get 15% off your first order, free shipping, and 100% satisfaction guarantee. MeUndies.com/morning. Back to it.
Thank you, MeUndies, for sponsoring us.
Yes, absolutely.
So, I have a question. This is a Science for Kevin question. At the end of the film, he gets in one of the tiny little ships and goes, I'm going to go through the wormhole. How long does he have to be in that ship before he gets to Edmund's planet? And does he pee? Because I was like, where do you pee? How are you gonna get rid of the P?
It took them 2 years to get from Earth to Saturn, right?
Saturn,
which is where
then
the
they slept
wormholes. But then and then did they sleep when they got through the wormhole? I don't think they do.
I don't think they did.
It
No, they
seemed like
don't.
that
Or
was
they
a
have showed
shorter
at least.
time, yeah. But also,
Except for the one
they
scientist
said-
who had to sleep for a little bit, but that was because he was going fucking crazy
Right,
above Nolan's
right.
planet.
I mean, that makes total sense. So I don't know. I guess it implies that it's not that long because, like,
Yeah,
how
you
many?
pop out the other side of the wormhole, and it's got to be.
But like,
close-ish.
space is so huge. Like, there's
know.
no close. Like, planets now are so far away. Like, he traveled. Saturn is the 6th planet. Is that right?
Right.
And we're the 3rd planet. So that took 2 years. And
We're assuming they have some sort of better propulsion than we have now, right? Because you're seeing when the engines light up, they look like fusion engines. They don't look like natural propulsion engines like rocket.
I think sunlight takes like 16 years to get to Saturn right now. So
And that's light.
It must be.
That's crazy.
No, that can't be right. That can't be right. No, I'm thinking Pluto. It must be like
Andy Cortez from Kind of Funny.
I have a concern. I know I'm enjoying this discussion, everybody. Don't get me wrong. And I know that there have been some times where we said, "Hey, let's just skip the plot, and it'll be fun." And we had fun. And some people said, "Oh, that shit was great. They should do that more often." And then we did that again last episode, and a lot of people were like, "Why the fuck aren't they doing the plot? That's the whole point of the show." So like, I'm concerned about Murph.
Murph. Did anyone else think like, hey man, it's cool that Topher Grace was in this movie for 5 minutes?
No,
Yeah, when he popped up, Eddie Brock himself.
I feel
love it.
bad because I hate
think it's cool.
Topher Grace. There's something about him that like I just want to punch him.
I told him I love him. I like
And he-
Topher Grace.
No,
I like him in this.
He was like he played a good character in this movie, but even when he was holding that tire iron and it was like, oh, you're about to get your ass beat. I'm so excited to watch
You're
it.
gonna get fucked up by Casey Affleck. No,
I liked him in this.
I like him in this. I love. I assume we're not doing the plot at this point, but the
Yeah,
other moment.
Andy, is that what were you driving at there? Did you?
Yeah,
want to
just
do the
I
plot?
don't know. Like I don't want to anger the fans.
I don't have anything to do till 3 o'clock today. So if you guys want
I'm
to
all
do 3
about
more
angering
hours,
him. I'm all about angering him. So you know what? We're not doing it. I've just decided it. Thanks.
Wow, look at that, Kevin taking the.
man, the scene. I know we touched on it already, but the way the narrative switches from Matthew McConaughey over to older Murph to Jessica Chastain's character, that is so beautifully done. Where he's watching and he's going through all the things he missed in his life, and he's crying and he's happy and he's sad and it's all that range of emotions that you see in Matthew McConaughey. And then Casey Affleck talks about, he's like, this is your grandson. And then in the next thing, he's like, your grandson died. It's the blight. It's this thing that's happening to all of us. And we're dying. And then he's like, I have to let you go. Like my people around me tell me that
Lois keeps telling me to let you go.
Yeah, and I'm going to do it. So bye. Sorry. I love you. Bye. And then it cuts. And then and then you haven't seen her yet, but she pops up and instantly you're like, holy fuck, that's Murph.
Yeah.
She's old.
Yeah.
And she's like, today is the day. I wouldn't do this, but today is my birthday. And today is that you said you might be older than me. Well, this is the day where I turn the same age you were when you left. And it's just so fucking well done. And then you see her on the screen, hit the button, and it switches to her perspective. And then all of a sudden we're there. Yeah. And we're back in that world. I'm like, God, this movie's so fucking so well put together. To me, it's just a masterclass.
I mean, another moment that it's similar, that just in the sense of being so well paced in the editing and just like the way that they kind of put everything, because Nolan always plays with time, always plays with this type of stuff. And this movie, I think, does it in such a unique way where everything is kind of happening, quote unquote, like at the same time, even if they're years apart and like, speeds are different and times are different. So like we wouldn't be able to watch a YouTube video with like everything playing at the same time, because it'd be fucking years.
You'd see on Miller's Planet, it would end, and then 23 years later they would catch up.
Exactly. But it's still cool that stuff's still happening. But even just when stuff is like scene to scene, like when we see Matt Damon get pulled out into space, and there's that intense moment where he starts the monologue and then just gets pulled out. That crazy ass moment of like, oh fuck, and then that happens. You're like, whoa, is immediately followed up with the docking sequence.
Oh
and it's
God.
like, it's just relentless. To me, that is kind of the actual kind of critical point of this movie, where everything is there. And this is like on our protagonist to be a hero, to do something that only he can do. And the way that it's shot, it's like every single shot in this movie builds up to that. When we first start seeing even just the cornfields and we see the dust and how big the scale is of that, but then to see space just being empty, like almost every time we see a IMAX shot of the cornfields, the corn's taking up so much of the shot, and there's like there's dust everywhere, things are going on. When it's space, it's just black, and then the little ships or whatever's happening. But then it builds, and when we start seeing the into the wormhole stuff with all the colors and all the crazy stuff, the payoff of the blackness, the contrast is what really makes it so magical and so special to see things contorting and being all crazy. But then when we get to that shot of him going in and spinning, and you see him match the speed, and all of a sudden it's like they've taught us the language of understanding these ships' movements in this black space so well over the course of 3 hours in this movie that when this happens, it's like when it locks in, there's a moment of release you have as a viewer that is just so, again, awe-inspiring. Like this movie's so powerful in making you feel something.
But even
really,
then,
and that pipe
feeling, right,
of
if
they lock off.
They lock in, right, and they've done that, and it's relentless. But it's also the thing of how bad and how fucked is it on the inside, right? For them to get in, that was my next thought of like, all right, cool, you're in there, but like spinning into something, having it tear it apart, getting in there and seeing what's been blown up, what airlocks have set off, where are we right now in this mission?
Another awesome moment of like where Tars is just like, we can't do this. Like, there's no point wasting the fuel, and he's like, we have to. This is our only option. Tars is like, let's fucking go. Also, when I said that it takes 16 years, I was thinking of the rotation
of Saturn around.
That's wrong too. It was 29 years. It takes like 1.4 hours for the sunlight to get there, but that's going at the speed of light, so that's a lot
which
faster.
We can't even get close to.
No.
There's a scene in this movie that
breaking news, real quick: Halo Infinite delayed till 2021.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Is that what we're gonna call this episode? There's a moment in this movie that I never picked up on before. But obviously, when you're doing a movie that's like this steeped in like deep science, you have to have some moments where you explain to a character what the fuck's going on so that the audience can understand that. But there's a great moment where as they're approaching the wormhole, I forget the scientist's name, the guy that gets blown up at the end, but he has Romley has to explain to Cooper how a wormhole works. And if I were on that ship, I'd be like, wait a minute, did nobody fucking tell you what we were about to do? You just committed to this. You have no idea how the physics of a wormhole work. And they use the paper analogy where they poke a hole through it. And I was like, man, he would know how a fucking wormhole works.
For sure.
He's an astronaut.
For
sure.
I do love that this movie does a lot of stuff just like Inception does, where you as the audience are so eager to see what happens that you are okay with stuff getting rushed and just kind of being introduced at such a fast pace where Michael Caine, he's talking to McConaughey, and it's suddenly and immediately it's like, you have to pilot the ship. It's like, what the fuck? I just got here, dude. Like, you don't even, are you kidding me? And he's like, you're the only one who can. And he's like, what if I didn't fucking walk through those doors? He's like, then we would have done it anyway. But now you're here and you have to do this. Like,
and you got sent here by magical coordinates in your daughter's bedroom.
Something's happening.
It's such a fucking hard case to argue against.
But he was sent there. He wasn't sent there by
ghost sent me here.
Remember, he wasn't sent there by magical coordinates. What was he sent there by? Gravity. What is the one thing they're trying to figure out? What is the piece of the puzzle they need? Gravity. So he was like, fuck, something's happening. I don't know what it is, but you're supposed to be here. I can feel that it's a cosmic force.
It's all those elements that are so clearly explained to the audience. But watching it, I'm still thinking like, man, this is hella convenient. This is a stretch, man.
I think they have a better device in this than they did in Inception. So Inception, the whole point of Ellen Page's character is to explain the rules as we go along to someone who's new to the process. In this, it's a little bit more organic for me because each one of the scientists that is on board has a specialty. And so like when Romilly has to explain, like he's talking about explaining how relativity works. It's understandable that Coop, who would have been a pilot, doesn't necessarily understand how the quantum mechanics or whatever the fuck it is, the theory of relativity, whatever is the physics, Kev, space physics, astrophysics, how that might 100% work. So he's like, wait a minute, just break it down to me layman's terms because I need top level, right? How long is every hour on this fucking planet? And he goes 10 years, and you see that look at his face where he's like, well, we better get our asses down there and right the fuck back up.
God,
because it's crazy to think. But like that's one of those where I'm like, oh, that I left the theater. I was like, that must be like playing with science a little bit. And then I Googled it and I was like, nope. It's also just maybe I'm just going to put it out there, guys. If we're ever looking for a planet to recolonize, let's not pick the one closest to the supermassive black hole that looks like it's sucking all of the life of the universe into it. And the universe is fighting and failing to go into it.
This is the movie that conceptualized what that would look like, right? Like, isn't this the one that sort of visualized the sort of spherical black hole with the rim kind of around it?
Well, because like it's sucking a star into it or something crazy like that.
Yeah. Other movies have done it, but
because
it's been done before, but it looked.
I'm pretty sure.
I think this one was using the most science to have that image.
Like I remember hearing like this is the movie that
no, they can't.
Sort of. This is the movie that sort of showed everybody what that would look like, you know?
Right. Well, it's interesting because to Kevin's earlier point, like what I just said was true and false, right? They can see where a black hole is. They can see the absence of the light going into the black hole, but they can never really visualize it because nothing can escape the black hole, even light. And so in this, having there be like what I just assumed was like a sun or a star that was being sucked into the black hole, so it could actually, paint in the negative space of what the hole looks like. I thought was a very, very smart choice.
We got the first picture of a black hole in April last year, which
isn't that crazy?
Is that right there?
Because they thought they knew where they were, but they were like, we can't see them, so we can't confirm that they're here, right?
Oh, here. So check this out. Yeah, this is what I'm talking about. So this is more stuff from Kip Thorne, but like the title of this is from Wired, and it says how building a black hole for Interstellar led to an amazing discovery. And it's kind of how like they started discovering actual real scientific shit while making this film. Like they had some like pretty big discoveries about shit. And yes, in chat, Dream Beavis says they made new rendering technology to be able to show this. That's also what I'm talking about, where this movie sort of helped I guess push some
science move forward,
some discoveries. Yeah, science go far, Kev.
Science go far with this movie.
Another cool visual though is the actual wormhole where it looks like a lens, and you can kind of like as they're going around it, you see the other galaxy through it in the spherical sense.
I love the
cool things with that is they talked about the sphere a lot, even in the plot of this movie, to kind of explain the black hole stuff. The Tesseract is the cube version of a sphere. Just the shape and stuff of how they actually designed all that stuff. But what's cool about the lens, Nick, is this movie was shot with 70mm and all that stuff in the IMAX. And they actually, as they were shooting it, there was new lens technologies coming out, and they were constantly like changing and updating the lenses they were using to achieve different effects. And there was like a custom lens made for those effects to like have it actually be like camera accurate to create something that would capture the image correctly.
Check this out. It says ray tracing software makes the generally reasonable assumption that light is traveling along straight paths. This is a whole other kind of physics. We had to write a completely new renderer, says Eugenie von Tunzelman. She's a CG supervisor at Double Negative. Some individual frames took up to 100 hours to render. The computation overtaxed by the bendy bits of distortion caused by an Einsteinian effect called gravitational lensing. In the end, the movie brushed up against 800 terabytes of data.
Shit.
That's awesome. And normally I'd be like that. We could have just probably put a displacement effect on After Effects and gotten something close to it.
Yeah.
Kudos to you. Kudos to you.
Good for them, man.
By the way, I normally I forget what movie we watched. Oh God, Kev, we watched something on Screencast that kept playing with that. With the aspect ratio, and it was very jarring. In this one,
and it kept switching. Yeah, what was that?
Yeah, I forget what it was, but
Transformers: The Last Night.
That's it.
Yes, that's what it was. Anyway, sorry, it wasn't Screencast; it was in review.
Yep.
This one, I forgive largely because when you do see this in IMAX, that effect of them going to the full frame of the IMAX was so unbelievably powerful that it's kind of just like cool, it switches here, and I get that, and I love that. I love both aspect ratios, and I love their use of it. But I do wish
IMAX image quality is
so much better,
much superior to the rest of it. That I'm just like it was like disappointing to see. I was like, damn, because the IMAX
65mm, so
stunning.
Well, what's funny is like, did you guys all see this originally in IMAX or no? I forget what we said. Okay,
I did.
So was it unbelievably loud in IMAX when you saw it?
Yes.
It was so loud to me that I remember having to cover my ears at the part where the ship leaves Earth's atmosphere and the organ really kicks in. I was like, oh my, I was like screaming to my wife. I was like, this is fucking awesome. And she's like, I'm going to get permanent hearing damage from this. And I'm like,
she opened her mouth and her teeth exploded like the Simpsons.
Well, that's what I was talking about earlier. It had a borked audio mix.
Did they really?
But did
Yeah.
all the
In the IMAX
IMAX
version?
theaters had it? Because I felt like ours.
A lot, not all of them, but a lot of them did.
But didn't we watch it together, you and I?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Well, whatever.
Oh,
If you saw it
mine
IMAX in
didn't,
San
yeah.
Francisco, it was probably the same mix because that's what I saw.
But that's
I will
what
say,
I saw
like,
too, and it was like not terrible.
he has Christopher Nolan has a couple just small technical deficiencies. And one of them is anytime he shoots an old British actor dying on a hospital bed, you just can't fucking understand anything they're saying. It's this, and it's Gary Oldman in The Dark Knight Rises.
Subtitles,
Like, yeah, I was like, what did he say?
Nick,
what
it's
is,
because
what is
you
he
don't.
saying?
Nick, if you would ever go to the bedside of a dying old British actor, you would know that's how they sound. That's accurate.
know.
Wait,
all
is
right?
Gary Oldman British?
I think so. Yeah. But it's so funny because like that Michael Caine scene, I was like, I just literally can't understand what the fuck he's saying. I had to turn the subtitles on for that. I'm like, I don't know. I mean, granted, again, all of this is with the asterisk that I'm watching all these movies through just the TV speakers of my 10-year-old plasma. But man, he was like, and I was like, I think he said he lied to her, but I'm not quite sure. Based on her reaction, it looks negative, but it could also be like happy birthday. I don't know.
Yeah, it's subtitles, bro. Come on.
I know, but
No,
but the
that's
subtitles
not,
ruin the
Andy,
aspect
yeah,
ratio.
it's not how it's meant to be viewed.
Yeah.
Your focus is supposed to be on the whole shot, not the bottom left, trying to understand.
Yeah.
I mean, I read super fast, though, Kevin. It takes like a millisecond to go. I'm back up.
The way I've
go.
always
The whole
described Andy's reading ability is snapshots, where he sees the caption. Like you and me would go there, Kevin, go, I'm reading the captions. Andy goes, skink, and, like he just has it processing in the back while he's doing other things.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Kev, how would you describe your
Kevin, 800 petabytes of data right here.
He's got a lot of pedos in his head.
Damn, so many
Big old pedo.
petabytes.
Big old fat pedo.
Crazy.
That doesn't sound right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
You know what's funny? This is the third time I've seen this movie, I think, in its entirety. It's been popped on TV. I'll watch it a little bit here and there. But I actually originally did not like Anne Hathaway's casting in this. Specifically, I think the reason why is because she has to deliver that monologue about love. And the first two times I saw that, I was like, God, that is kind of cheesy. Yeah. This third time, it worked for me. And I think it's because I was paying closer attention to like the through lines of the themes, and having her say that and realizing kind of like having a more holistic view of how the movie kind of comes back in full circle time wise. I'm like, this is actually working for me. I actually really liked her a lot more the third time I saw her in this movie. It doesn't help that like when we cut over to Jessica Chastain is just so much more, in my opinion, like better suited for a role like this, that she's much more fascinating for me to watch.
I always felt like that line or the monologue was supposed to sound cheesy because at the end of the day, she doesn't win them over, right? Like,
well, and also it's not rooted in science, right? So
Right.
she's like a scientist, and she's like,
Yep.
love has to be this thing. And even Matthew McConaughey's like, I'm the dumbest person on this ship, and that sounds like
I'm Matthew McConaughey.
like I am by far not the smartest person on this ship, and that sounds like some fucking weird dumbass logic, but it ends up being the case. I think
That's why it works, right? Yeah, I
Yeah.
think we're all on the same page. It's, we
Don't
all
let me
come into
leave
that
her.
same knowledge, not knowing what in their world that love is some kind of scientific thing or pull or whatever, right? So to hear her say it, you are like, yeah, when you spell it out, that sounds dumb as shit, especially for not having told everybody, Romley or whatever his name was, that hey, this is how it's going.
Well,
Something
one of
that
my
I didn't really vibe with though, like especially with like the theme of love as a concept of this movie and like what they kind of present with all of it, is when we see Matthew McConaughey and his love throughout this movie, it kind of feels inconsistent to me, especially when you look at the beginning of him when he first goes on the mission. Like his goodbye to Murph feels a little anticlimactic. Like it feels like he should have tried a little harder to connect with her. And I know she was mad at him, but like literally that conversation leads to him getting in a truck and going off. And I understand times of the essence and all that shit, but it's just like combining that with the conversation he has with John Lithgow about why is he doing it? And I'm not fully convinced at that moment that he's not doing it because he feels this need for adventure.
Mm-hmm.
No, but that is
and
true,
them setting that up though, I feel like kind of just like splits it in a way that, especially by the time you get to the end of the movie and he's at Murph's dying bed, and it's like such a powerful moment, and then she's pretty much just like, all right, you can go now, I'm gonna
I got my real
family.
family go.
It's just like, okay, you guys just need to finish the movie. Like that just seems so wildly unbelievable.
So for
and like
me,
only in a way to again button it all up at the end and have it be this thing of like, we did it, guys.
Maybe, but you have to remember, she's lived without her father for 100 years. So he's already been dead, and she's already kind of made her peace with that. Yeah, she's like 100. I think he's 124 years old, and so she's.
You can't say she made her peace with that when it's literally every time we see her over the course of her 100-year life that she's just can't stop talking about it and thinking about it.
Yeah, but I feel like after she got the information, which I want to talk about that in a minute, but like I do think that like she did think he had died in the 80 years that passed with her not
for sure
having
she did
any info from him.
And but to address the first part, Tim, that first moment, it was a little weird for me too. I was like, man, you think he would stay there until he made good with his daughter. But there is an element of his character development where he has never been happy being a farmer, which is why he always pushes his other son and his daughter to being like other, because he knows that his potential, and it's selfish. It's pure selfishness is why he leaves. And it's not until the end of the movie that he realizes, holy shit, this whole thing wasn't about me. I'm just a tool to put my daughter where she's supposed to be. She's the one that's going to save everyone. It's not about the state. And they even have that moment where he's like, nice of you to name the space station after me. And the guy laughs. He's like, we didn't name it after you, buddy. Sorry.
Yeah.
He's like,
well, I think that's part of the thing that like
I think that realization
isn't explored as much, but I think is there in terms of the characterization of Coop throughout the movie, right? Where he is this single father in this blight, doing a job he doesn't want, living with his father-in-law, who they're fine, but they're not close, right? Like they're not like bros. And it is this conversation of he's been given in his head, right, a bum rap. He's been dealt a bad hand here. And so, yeah, when in the very beginning, we get to see him, fail his flight and whatever. And that's the whole thing of like why he doesn't fly anymore or why they won't let him fly anymore. You then get it to be, we get this slice of life from him. Guess what, everybody? Life sucks for him here. He's not accomplished. He does love his daughter or whatever. He sees himself so much in his daughter. He takes her to school. They're not teaching Apollo landings anymore. They're saying it's,
what a great scene.
Totally.
God,
and it's like this thing that's setting up the fact that like he sees himself in her. And I think that when we get to the scene that for you, Tim, is unbelievable, right? Of like him leaving his daughter the way he leaves her. I think a big part of that is not only the timetable of it, not only I need to go have an adventure. It's this thing of trying to talk to yourself in a way and also being exhausted, being a single parent at this point. And granted, arguable because the grandfather's doing some heavy lifting there too. But this thing of just like, we're always on the same fucking page, Murph. This is the right thing. You're just like me. You understand this. Just understand this. You need to understand it. Because he does there's a line where she actually, I think, punches him in the face by accident in the acting, but rolls over and he's like, come on, Murph. And it's like the way I've talked to Portillo before, not in like Murph's his dog, but in the way of just like, you know exactly what I need you to do right now. Just do what I need you to do right now. This is how it has to happen. This is what's going to blah, blah, blah. Right. And I think it is back to what we were talking earlier about it's like your mother used to always say, that when you guys are born, we're just ghosts now for your future kind of thing. I think it is back to Nick's point that, I think he says that and he says that and he says that over and over again as them being children, but I don't think he believes it necessarily. And then at the end, when he is the literal ghost of their future, of the fate of fucking humanity too, that's when he gets it and it locks in and he's there more for the, okay, I'm living this now and I get it in a way I didn't get it before and this is what's happening. Yeah. All that said, I do think when he gets to the bedside and she's like, I'm so glad you're alive. Get the fuck out of my room and go save Anne Hathaway. It's like, that's true.
Okay. I mean, I think that is one of those
not believable to me.
That's one of those moments where we do need to end this movie and that's how it is. But the moment that always gets me a little bit, there's two moments. There's the wormhole moment where they explain to an astrophysicist like fucking how wormholes work. And then there's a moment where he walks in. Now, Greg, if you were sitting here and you're great with all of your family and your great grandfather walks through the fucking door, and everyone, by the way, would know who this guy is because he's one of the 3 or 4 people that left 124 years ago to save the planet, and it fucking worked. This guy walks through the door and everyone's like, who the fuck is that? And then they all just leave.
But they don't even say hi.
I didn't get a who the fuck is that. I didn't get the who the fuck is that. I got the, oh shit, that's him. Let's let him have his moment with his daughter. Then when when I was invited back in the room to say goodbye to my grandma or whatever, my Meemaw, I would have also be like, "Hey, pleasure to meet you, time traveling great grandfather,
person who's younger and better looking than I am, and he's 124 years old. Let's have a
I got questions. I'm part of the family.
Yeah, I think
I need you to be on my podcast. I need to interview you.
The kids were Matthew McConaughey's real kids.
Were they really? That's great.
Oh, I didn't know.
But
he had kids.
every time I get to this scene, and obviously it's because I love this movie so much, and I just want to be in this world more. But it is disappointing where he's like, they have that moment where they have one more moment together, and she's like, "I'm with my family. I know you want to be back out there. I know who you are. Like, go back out there one more time." Part of me is like, can you just stay for one more fucking day and like hang out with your daughter?
Dude, the more we talk about it, the more it like falls apart
It's
for me.
sad.
Of like,
It's
him
not
being
perfect.
selfish and doing his own thing. Sure, all this stuff happened, but that's not because of his love or because he wanted it to.
So
It's for her. The whole climax of this being them needing to re-meet each other and have this moment for her to just send him back out, cool as fuck. The final shots of him going to get Anne Hathaway and all that stuff, cool as hell. Stealing the ship, all of that. Literally could not be cooler.
Right.
But I feel like the movie at some point kind of gives up the goose of being like trying to be cool instead of being consistent with the themes it was setting up.
Maybe I don't think so. It doesn't destroy the whole movie for me at this point.
No,
Because I always got that she's going to die here and that she just wants to be surrounded by like the rest of her family, and that it'd be like really awkward for him to be in the room, and that they needed for her family to like be with her. She wanted to provide that last moment with them without having hit this weird thing happening. So I always in my brain, I'm like, I'll just explain it away of being like, we had this moment, we said hello, we finally reconnected, we forgive each other, you're great, I'm great. Now get the fuck out of here so I can die with the 3 other generations of my family that I have made and I've lived with forever. And go. The one thing that I thought was weird though on the third viewing was that when I first saw this, I was like, oh, there's a weird sort of like almost romantic affection between Cooper and
Hathaway.
Anne Hathaway's character. I didn't get that the third time. The third time I watched it, I was like, I think he just wants to go like save her because
I feel like there's certain implications being made, like especially like when he is leaving her. Like it's not just like, no, I'm gonna lose the only other person that could help me on this mission. I get the feeling
he has
that
an affection for her, but I just don't know what that affection is. There's one moment where he sort of flirts with her a little bit at the very beginning.
Yeah,
where she says
knows.
But
yeah, but she says, I'm so-and-so, and he goes, I knew a professor or whatever, but he didn't look like you. And then, which I always thought was a weird line in this, because I was like, you think your kids are going to die? Why are you stopping to flirt with Catwoman here? But like then toward the end of it, I just got this concept of like, he is a space explorer. He has to be out there, and one of his teammates is like alone on this place, and it's really sad. And he can fix that, so he's. But I mean,
she has it down, right? And also, why isn't no one knows?
But does she know that they're coming for her? This is the question I have for you is, she can't get signals through the wormhole, right?
Right.
Correct.
But they did, so why can't they anymore? I forgot
she
why.
Well, remember they had to get into it. Remember they shot TARS into it, and then
you're thinking of the
black
black
hole. Into it.
The wormhole's still there, and the wormhole can get signals through and out. That's how they got the signals back from the 3 scientists to begin with, right?
They couldn't send signals. Oh, they were very rudimentary signals, is what they said. So you can't send a lot of information. It seemed like it was minimal stuff, but
So would Anne Hathaway know that they're going to come for her one day?
If they continue to send messages out, which I'm sure that it makes sense that they did. So when she popped out, if the equipment stayed intact, you have to imagine she had years of messages of them being like, you guys fucking did it.
Yeah,
right?
We got you. We're coming. We're going to be there in our time, fucking 30 years, your time. You're going to literally touch it down, and we're going to have a party ready for you.
Yeah.
Because like all that time dilation, weird shit.
Right.
Yeah,
but
so
I mean, it also didn't work out that way. Right? Because they came out at the same time. Matthew McConaughey and Anne Hathaway, they are in the same time, like, because their dilation was the same, right?
Yes, but their dilation was 100 and some odd years, right?
Right.
So to him, they're still on the same timeline. So basically, my question was, and I have no idea if you can even do the science for this because we don't know how much time passed, but. How long did it take her to get to the planet? How long has she been on that planet before he comes and gets her? Is it a matter of a couple days or weeks?
No.
Well, so we
it
get
seemed like a while because she was able to set up like a big camp and stuff.
Yeah, but I think that's the
she
kind
buried
of
her
stuff
love too.
Yeah, but I think that's all easy to do. Like they implied. Well, no, but like they implied that like
the guy's decomposing. He probably weighs 10 pounds.
They implied that. I mean, he's probably like mushy melted into
into his suit.
He's been there. Like the things only work for like 10 years or something, right?
Yeah.
The sleep thing, or maybe it was like 20 years, but like at that point it had been like another 80 on top of that.
Yeah.
So
she's holding like a big sleeping bag of just liquid and shit.
Goop.
It's like one of those little like balloon things that you can stick your finger in. Remember those
Wait,
things?
but
They're
they
like, what
remember-
does this
I do remember
serve?
those.
What
Remember
does
when
this
they
serve?
they were on Man's planet and they were like, oh, like we're gonna drop we want to find a place to drop the base, and like you can't like undrop it when you drop it. So I think that the
Right.
base stuff was they shoot something from outer space, lands.
I mean, land a
and
rover of some sort. Yeah.
And like,
And so wait,
it's
did the
easy
base
to-
have all the eggs in it?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So is Anne Hathaway gonna be like Big Mama Hathaway?
for sure.
That was
Like,
the goal. Well, not anymore. We can kill those eggs or cook them or whatever the hell you do with them because now.
but like
humanity's
she
safe.
doesn't know that, right?
Yeah.
Or if she does, when
no,
she
there's-
got when like we cut from him about to go save her or meet up with her to her, and like the bases are all built. So I imagine she did that in the same amount of time that it took him to recover and escape, and not escape, but leave, right?
I love that he has to do it like surreptitiously too.
I
He was like,
know.
"I'm gonna sneak the fuck out of here," and everyone's
Yeah.
like, "Dude, we would have just let you have the thing
For
We're like,
sure,
"God."
right?
Yeah, you're like the
We
biggest
could have
hero in
helped.
America.
We would have loved to have. We would have loved to have more.
Send a
Yeah,
crew,
we would have loved
send
to
a
talk
crew.
to them.
We could have gone with you. We could have given you a bigger ship and like another TARS unit. That would have been cool. Yeah,
Also,
the-
kind of
It's
weird.
been
that the
what
ships look the
60
same.
years. Like we have a whole bunch
What?
of cooler ships than this.
yeah.
There's been no advancements in the ships. Yeah. That
Well,
was
no,
it.
you
Well, no,
have
they
to
were more
imagine,
advanced.
yeah, that like those ships were
He took a smaller
similar in
unit.
design, but like they probably have better life support and make it so it's
Oh,
more viable.
I'm sure that, but yeah, like the designs haven't changed in
You
fucking
wanted
80
some like
years.
neon pink and like neon blues or something.
I mean, just just bought like modular body, like sort of stylings.
Oh,
It
see,
looked identical.
I love the design of the ships
Yeah, I like it
because they look
too.
like A-wings from Star Wars.
Yep.
I just think they're
But
cool
more
because they're what a
streamlined.
spaceship would look like. You don't need wings and you don't need like what do we call it, flaps, or actually you do need flaps if you're going into atmospheres and stuff like that. But I just think they're so utilitarian and like just streamlined. They look like wedge. Everything's just harsh angles in this, Andy, where it's like wedges and monolithic looking things, and it all harkens back, in my opinion, to like some of the imagery we see in like those old science fiction movies. It's fucking cool, man. And also, I'm always a huge fan of different colored spacesuits. So when they get to Man's planet and he's got an orange spacesuit, I was like, that's fucking cool.
really
That's
cool.
really
Yeah.
cool. And then the new spacesuits in the future are like darker charcoal. I'm like, that's fucking cool.
And they have a cool logo.
Yeah.
One thing that does bother me is how he relayed the information to her, which is Morse code to a.
That would take a while.
watch. Well, that would take a while. That would take a while,
you've
but
got
also
time.
like, how does it work? Like, did he
it
affect
just
the
flips this
gravity?
way.
No, I understand that part, but I'm saying, did he affect the gravity specifically in that hand?
Yeah. And the second
Or-
hand. He
so
programmed
it
it
wasn't-
into the second hand movement.
That's just seems crazy to me that the gravity then, because it's not that one spot, it's the gravity of that the actual hand.
Yeah,
'Cause I
and
feel
the-
like then it's really easy to prove like, yeah, no, go ahead, take some sort of readings to tell it like that movement is happening, because she says
And
like,
Kevin,
oh,
And
My
Kevin, what
question
if
is
she
where
didn't?
you
What
start.
if she didn't start recording it at the right time?
That's
What
what
if
I
she,
that's what I always think. I was like, this is a
must
jumbled mess.
loop though, right?
Yeah, I assume it does.
Yeah.
Or you record it all and then you can just figure out what the natural looping point is. But I thought
Right.
that was so cool. What an interesting use of like the second hand of a watch, because you could literally magnetize it up and it would stop and go and go and go. And how you program that into it is so fucking rad. Like their use of like spot gravity into things is just mind bending. It's so cool.
It's just so
But
weird.
does it
to-
work though?
Yeah, it's
Why
just
not?
so weird that she's walking around with something that has programmed gravity like rhythm to it,
Yeah.
and that's
cool.
yeah. I mean, so,
Well, I mean, theoretically, you could do. I mean, if a watch gets magnetized, it'll stop the movement because it's all. So you could do lots of different. I
But
mean, I
that's
know magnetism and gravity
magnetism,
aren't the
yeah.
same thing, but I mean, guys, he's also in a 5-dimensional tesseract by the end of this. So
Yeah.
the idea of programming it into a watch is, I think, cool. I think it's a fun way to get the information across. Without
That was
having
to
have
me
be
the,
like,
the point that I really was just like, I don't like this explanation to it, because all the pushing the books and stuff, gravity, cool, that makes sense. But
Yeah.
the gravity of the watch, I was just like, all right, I buy this just because you're telling me it works. But like,
yeah,
I don't understand how you cause it to do that in different degrees over time and have it loop and have it stay and all that stuff.
I would have
But-
just used the gravity to write in the dust on the ground, like, hey.
yeah, but you have to, imagine.
But you don't know when she's going to come read it. The more dust would have fallen,
Yeah, and also you have to imagine that, like,
He's a
man,
5-minute
she was there decoding that watch for a while.
Well, I mean,
Morse
I'm
code goes by
sure-
letter.
I'm sure that like there's some system that she could have set up like a fucking camera on it, and then just someone could have made.
Kevin,
She did it by
Kevin.
hand. She wanted
This is
to.
what interns are for. This is
Talking
what
to Dad.
unpaid interns from Cal State, San Francisco are for.
Yep.
Go get a couple of those, give them some free coffee, and be like, "You're sitting here until this is done. If not, all of humanity dies."
I just think that like I wish they had thought a little bit more about that, because it just, to me, it sounds so absolutely like ridiculous that she has this watch that will forever, I assume, keep this information
it does the message
going
over and over again.
Yeah, but
I think it's cool. I think it works for me. I mean,
But
granted, the science, like, there's no absolute definite explanation for it, which I can understand why Tim wouldn't like that, because so much of this is rooted in like, hey, science that you can kind of wrap your head around. But I just think that they found a cool way, especially since he has that same watch and they have that moment where he's like, let's time our watches together and we'll see how far off they are when I get back. And then that's the one thing that she remembers. So like, oh, that's the thing she'll remember, and she'll look at it and she'll look at the second and she'll be able to figure it out. Because how do you communicate with someone across, interdimensions like that?
But so just to try to think of the logic, at one point he draws the coordinates, right, in binary for the NASA
on the dust.
Mm-hmm. So that dust, will it always have altered gravity?
Yeah, I think so.
Or will that spot always have altered gravity?
I think it's just
like
that
the
spot
wood
would always have it. Like if you threw dust on it, the dust would go into the And if you threw a quarter on it, it would always have that weird like programmed, like you could program the gravity into the 3-dimensional space of the thing, and that's always going to be with that thing. So to me, it was always like, it's not about programming the watch; it's about programming the gravity around the watch to do certain things that will interact with the mechanical nature of the watch to allow it to do that one thing, and it's stuck to that point in space time forever, no matter where that point goes. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So like to me, it's like it's totally possible if you can fuck with gravity on anything, and you can do that interdimensionally through space and time, like you could program anything to do anything really, because gravity is the most powerful force like that we really don't understand. But
fun fact,
we know
it's one of the weakest force.
Is it?
Yeah, I mean, like fundamentally how it works, but it is like on the large scale becomes insanely powerful at breaking.
Yeah.
If the gravity is affecting not the dust, but the space the dust inhabits, so it's stopping the dust from going into space.
You're gonna ask a question I do not know the answer to. But let's go down this road. Let's go down this road together, Tim.
But do you see where I'm going with this? Like, why does it now stick to the physical watch, but it's the space that the dust is in?
So
it would make sense if the watch had to stay where it was.
Who knows? Maybe you take that board out and you take that floor out and it goes with the board. I don't know.
Well, that's what I was trying to ask with when I brought up the sand, because it's like, is it with the board? Like that is wonky, and I wish there was a better way they could translate this information, even if it was him sitting there, because I think that they have a pretty easy system with the bookshelves and the fact that it's stacked, so knock some out. And you just do Morse code that way.
Yeah,
he does stay, right?
Sure, you imagine that's what they wanted to do, but then at a certain point, you're like, God, that's not going to be visually fun. She needs to be sitting. We need to see her sitting in her lab reading the fucking thing, so that the audience gets a visual touchstone of like she's figuring out the equation. Like, sure, we have the moment where she erases. But she could have just been sitting there, looking at it, and starts writing shit on the board. We need that. You just need that for the audience.
You know what I mean? Like, she could have been sitting in her childhood bed, just sitting there taking notes as these books magically keep fucking falling.
Yeah, but I would be 100% there, except for the fucking fact that her brother has apparently turned into an axe murderer and is willing to kill his whole family.
Dude, yeah. What a fucking
what a turn for that poor kid.
Of Jesse really set him off. All right,
poor
Jesse's dying of the plague.
Dude, that's another thing though, is that when we first started watching this last night and we're getting introduced to the whole idea of where the world's at and the dust and all this shit, and like we see the dust kind of coming up and it's like this physical presence, I was like, how far off are we from Corona taking a physical presence? And like, this is so fucking scary, and the way people are acting, and it's like you see not Timothy Chalamet, freaking
Casey Affleck.
Casey Affleck, and like how his character turns out, and I'm like, fuck, those people exist right now. That's really scary.
I don't like this topic you're bringing up.
I mean, it'd be really.
Instead, let me just pivot really quick to like a moment that I wanted to get to. Can you imagine? She's just come after lighting a fire to steal his family away, right? Mm-hmm. And he's coming back. He probably doesn't know that she lit the fire, but he's gonna get there and notice that like after they just got this fight, she's trying to steal his family, and she's gonna run out and be like, "Oh, she did. We see it.
Yeah.
There's
what
a message.
What the fuck was this scene?
Look at the arm hand. Look at how it's moving. It's a message. It's Morse code.
I really
you're
think
right,
I would smack the fucking watch out of her hand. You know what I mean?
You're crazy, Murph.
Yeah. I mean, again, there's some inconsistencies that I wish weren't like that. I think they could have just ended it with, like, I don't know, some
the
other
message
way,
getting out. I
but
think that would have been enough.
I think her hugging him and him having that realization, I think the scene could have been done a little bit better. Because I think he is not a bad person. I think he's just depressed and beaten down by all that. Yeah. All the horrors
the world's ending,
including losing a kid, and realizing that, because she's like, we gotta go. He's like, where the fuck are we gonna go? We're gonna die underground. Yeah. Like, at least I want to die on my farm. And I think they do a decent enough job kind of painting why he's in that mental state. But it's like, it's sad. Like, he's lost a kid. His dad left him. He doesn't have a great relationship. He's working on this farm, and he knows he talks about how the other farmers' crops are dying and corn's dying, and he knows that it's all just for nothing. It's all. He's also
him being like, we'll make it up using the other guy's farm, and it's like, what happened to the other guy? It's like,
yeah, he's like, well,
yeah.
Also, Topher deserved to get punched there. Like,
oh my god, so much.
Come on, bro.
You know what I mean?
Topher's a doctor.
Him walking in his house is being like, he needs to leave now.
Yeah, be less rude about it.
I would have knocked
it
like,
out. He's like, let me be 100%. Like, I'm like, dude, you're talking down to me. Yeah. Bah, axe murder.
Yeah.
Eric Foreman.
Hey, I have a question though. Science with him, a question for the authorities. So the station that Jessica Chastain, NASA is, right? Is that Cooper Station? Did they launch that thing into space using gravity?
No. So they say that
because there's the little hatches built into the side of it, like it would be a cylindrical space station.
Well, he says there's the scene where he's like, it's a centrifuge
planet.
Yeah. Right?
Which would create gravity in space, right?
Right.
Or artificial gravity. It doesn't create gravity. It creates the G-force that would simulate gravity in space.
Right.
But when they get to Cooper Station, I always wonder, I'm like, so because the whole point of this film is that they have to figure out how gravity works so they can get everyone off the planet. Because you can't launch 6 billion people into space. It would just take thousands and thousands.
Well,
it would just work.
They make it clear that there's significantly less people than there was.
Well, but even then, it's like by the time we get to half the population off the Earth, the other half is dead. They're all dead because there's no food left here. So, we have to be able to go find an environment.
Something I hadn't heard in any of my other viewings, and I don't know how because it's very like in your face, is that like she's coming from a different station, the Murph, old Murph. So
yeah, she was 2 years. It takes her 2 years to get from one station to the other, and she's like in cryogenic sleep.
Right. I think that. Well, I think it takes a couple of weeks. They said, but it doesn't matter.
Maybe it was a couple weeks. But I love that he was like, we told her not to go because a person of her advanced age,
right, shouldn't be.
It wouldn't work. But there's no telling.
Murph, yeah.
Like, this is Murphy Cooper we're talking about. I love that.
But then again, she only has like, I mean, come on. She gets there and it's like, luckily I got here on my last day to live. I don't want to talk to you, Matthew McConaughey.
She was hanging on. She was hanging on to Dear Dad one more time.
I had to read that she was in sleep because they knew that they had him or whatever, and they were going to go get him. And she was put to sleep.
No, I think it was. I think it was more that
so she didn't die in transit.
She believed that he would still be coming, and that's why she put herself in sleep to extend whatever years she had left because her dad was going to come back. Which that was a good line. That was a good little moment.
Which is why again I sort of forget that last scene where I'm like I always, when I first saw it, I was like, these are her last moments. And that she's like, you shouldn't. She has that moment where she's like, I'm going to die. A parent should not have to watch their child die. Just go. Like, don't be there. Then the second time I watched it, I was like, I'm pretty sure she's got at least a day left or two. And then the third time I was like, nah, she's going to die like 20 seconds later. Yeah.
Tell me about your kids and grandkids.
Who are these kids? They're my great grandkids. I don't know.
What happened to your brother? I know we were never friends. I didn't like him as much as I liked you because he wanted to be a dumb hayseed. But whatever happened to him?
Oh gosh, yeah. But
a father should never have to watch her daughter die. So it's your time now, Coop. Bam, stabs him in the throat, dude.
Fuck you.
That's for leaving. Yeah.
I knew you would fucking leave
I
me.
never went to therapy. Fuck. Axe murderer comes in. I've been alive the whole time. Fucking.
So MVP for sure. Tars, right?
I would think so.
Yeah.
Just for Miller. I mean, we haven't even talked about Miller's Planet yet.
Fuck Miller's Planet. That it's terrifying. And then one guy just gets swept away.
Is your MVP Miller's Planet?
No. But like the science of Miller's Planet, Kev, is that as the planet rotates, the black hole is sucking the water in a big wave, right?
Yeah, I mean it must be affecting the gravity similar like tidal effect, yeah. Which 30% of which is the sun. It's not just the moon affecting the tidal.
Oh, right. I thought because it was so
Sean
close to the
Finnegan.
black hole, it was like sucking it. It was sucking the water out.
Yeah,
this way.
I assume that it's creating some sort of effect that is moving it all and like hyper.
You would think that like before you landed on that planet, you would
You
like
could
fly
see,
around it
right?
a little bit. Be like, this looks like
But
it's
I
got
guess-
massive tsunamis.
Dude,
and
But
I'm
here's
gonna
the
go
thing,
back
Nick.
up.
They
here's
don't have
the thing.
time. They
No,
don't
no,
have time.
Andy, like that's actually a really good point because when they're at the space station, everything is moving super slowly. So when you see a giant wave that looks like a mountain, that's what you think it is, right? A mountain.
Right.
Like they
that's a good
can't tell
point.
that it's water because it's not moving. So by the time they land and they're like, where's the mountains?
What a scene, man.
Too
That
late.
entire thing.
But also
this
they talk about how they're like, how long has she been here for? How long has Miller been here for? And there's some
couple
line
of
where he's
hours.
like, not that long.
Yeah.
Like a couple of hours. She just
Yeah.
died like 2 hours ago. You're like, get off this planet. This
Yeah,
planet
dude.
is
This
hell,
is one of
Greg.
those like this is one of those movie magic spectacle moments that you want to show anybody who maybe isn't necessarily, or doesn't have like an HD TV or something. It's like this is one of the scenes that you show them because it's just it's so terrifying. And I love that line of let's walk towards the mountains. Like, oh, those are mountains.
It's our mountain.
Yeah, it's just so perfect, dude. And then you think the wave's gonna end, and it just keeps panning up. Like the camera just keeps going up, and it's just like way the fuck up there. It's horrifying, man.
Dude, and even just like all the talk of the time of the planet and stuff, and they're just like, wait, like why is the wreckage still here? They're like, she must have died hours ago, maybe minutes, and it's just like, oh fuck, God, that's crazy.
Get out.
So cool.
Before we
And
get
hit
out of
me
it,
with
'cause we're
some,
wrapping up, before we get out of it, I want to give a shout out to the baseball scene when they go to see the New York Yankees play in like the most minor
world
league
famous
ballpark. Yeah, exactly. And then you have that thing where John Lithgow, like, who are these bums? They had real ball players when I was growing up. And like, we were too busy fighting over food. Like, this is that's a cool piece of storytelling in terms of what the world's actually like.
Well, I also love the follow-up shot at the end when they're on the space station and they're playing baseball and it like hits up into the Elysium ass shit. Cool as hell.
Oh, I know.
7 syllables in the middle. You'll need 5 for the first and last line. If you're not poetic, no need to fret it. Haikus don't need to rhyme. Haiku in review. Haiku in review.
You can go to patreon.com/kindoffunny to write your review in haiku form, just like Cass Kulk did. The earth is dusty. So all right. We're going to space. Lee Bolero says, this movie's epic, but it's not enjoyable. Ambitious, yet flawed. Brian Smith says, let us fly to space. We can save the human race. Keep her safe now, Case.
Oh, I like that.
Thanks for the rhyme. Let's see. I almost don't even want to read this one, but I'm gonna, Nick. I'm sorry. Andrew Feisner says, old man looking old. 124. It's Nick Scarpino.
Yeah. Hey, man, tell you one thing right now. If I ever look as good as Matt McConaughey looks anytime he's on screen, I'll be happy with that. He has that like saddled look where he's like a little weathered, Greg, but he's still good looking, like distinguished.
Oh, he looks great. Are you kidding me?
Fucking great. He's great looking.
Ragu.
Ragu. I forgot this. Goo goo. What's up, everyone? Welcome to Rad Guys Talk Good Guys here in the Nolan universe. I'm your host, Nick Scarpino. The current rankings are number 1, Batman and Wolverine from Prestige. Number 2, Cobb Salad from Inception. Number 3, Lenny from Memento. Number 4, Hooah from Insomnia. And number 5, the very, very young boy from Following.
Every time he gets younger.
Next week, he's going to be an embryo from this movie.
He's going to be sperm.
I think,
where do you want to put Cooper from Interstellar?
I feel like this is the easiest number 1 spot where this guy isn't like a monster that's trying to get revenge or like murder someone or creepy stalk people. He's just really has a sense for exploration and wants to make the world better for his kids.
I agree, Kevin. I put him number 1. I mean, he just went through so much. He went through so much adversity, and he lined up his ship with the rotating space station.
Sure, yeah.
And
the computer couldn't do that.
Didn't pass out. And Hathaway passed out. And I was like, Coop, you stay alive, Coop. And he's just like leaning like, oh, come on, Case. Or Tars, I forgot who he's talking to.
Tars.
I'm in weird space, Murph. I'm in the weird space. It's just awesome, dude.
Number 1 with a bullet. Come on. He's great. Matthew McConaughey acts the hell out of this role.
Beautiful.
He's number 1. Easily.
The current rankings are, the new rankings are All Right from Interstellar, Batman and Wolverine from Prestige, number 2, number 3, Cobb Salad, number 4, Lenny from Memento, number 5, Hooah from Insomnia, and number 6, The Zygote from The Following.
Thank you.
Damn. Now it's time to rank the Christopher Nolan movies. Currently, number 1, Inception. Number 2, The Prestige. Number 3, Memento. Number 4, Following. Number 5, Insomnia. Like I said earlier, I put this at number 2, right behind Inception. And I've explained why throughout this. But I think the biggest reason is while Inception kind of had so much exposition throughout it, an insane amount, it was explaining stuff that like was creative and really cool. Whereas this movie had the exposition for science stuff, and then at the end of it tried to have a really cool thing, and all it was to me was just exposition that buttons everything up so nicely that it kind of makes it not fascinating anymore. And also I feel like there's just inconsistencies in its theme and its main characters, specifically at the end.
Man,
see, I disagree 100%. This for me is my by far number 1, and I think it's because all the things I didn't like about Inception, this solves, in that there is like, I don't love the ending of Inception. I don't like that it's open for interpretation because that's supposed to be quite quasi deep. In this, I think this is like his opus. Honestly, I think it's as good of a movie as a filmmaker can make. And I think it obviously plays into my love of science fiction. I think a lot of the stuff being rooted in reality makes me, it does what I think all good space travel movies should do. It like inspires me. It makes me want to learn more about these things that I will never understand because, I went to freaking film studies school. I think on a level where Inception is entertaining, I think this movie moves me on such a deep level. It makes me feel, it makes me cry, it makes me reach out and want to grab my wife's hand. It makes me it reminds me that like humanity is the most important thing, and our relationships are the most important thing, and we should be willing to risk everything for that. And not only that, like Matthew McConaughey's performance in this is like the best he's literally ever been. And watching him, I know the scenes are coming, these wonderful gut-wrenching scenes. I know, and I prepare for them, and I wind up crying every single time at these moments in these movies because of Matthew McConaughey and how it's all set up. And I just think this movie just evokes so many more emotions than anything else Christopher Nolan's done prior to that. And I think it just works on such a deep level for me.
There's no possible way to say it better than what Nick just said. I say it's number 1.
Yeah,
I put it number 2. I agree with Tim. I mean, I still agree with everything Nick said. It's crazy. Like I think
no, you clearly didn't actually. You clearly didn't agree with it.
Big part that you disagreed with.
I told Tim last night that we are getting into MCU territory where these movies are all just so close to me and so damn good. And I could argue on any day that I like The Prestige more than this movie or Inception and vice versa. But I enjoy everything practical about this movie until we start getting into the twist was satisfying, but I still feel like it's a little too ridiculous and goofy at times. Even though I think you guys
just don't. You're not reacting well to the fact that he actually committed to there being an ending. I think you guys just like the ambiguity of some of the other movies.
That's not it at all.
No, I don't.
Because like for me,
at
the end of Interstellar, I was like, God damn, I don't like the ending of this. I really don't like that everything's open for the Inception. Excuse me, not Interstellar. I just like that. This to me is a little bit more straightforward, and there is a little bit of a twist at the end, but the twist to me is gratifying. Mm-hmm. Whereas the other movies, he's always made a twist, and you're like, okay, well, there's that. And I think that Inception does such a worse job at coming up with the science of why all this stuff would work.
Yeah.
To me, it just kind of comes out as mumbo jumbo at a certain point where I'm like, all right, well, great. We don't, I talked about that.
Yeah, I feel like Inception doesn't like go into the science. They're just like, hey, this.
There is
works.
no science.
Yeah.
It's not science. There's no science.
It's all from his brain, which is really cool.
Sure, but
making a compelling story out of reality to me is so much more powerful because all of this stuff theoretically could happen. And to me, that serves to really heighten the tension of all this because especially as we're going through a global pandemic right now, and we have Elon Musk and all these other companies trying to figure out how to get to Mars. Like all of this shit is so relevant, even more so today. And the movie was made 5 years ago or 6 years ago.
I really think that obviously this is my number 1, and I really think that it does something like the more you sit down and want to break apart the third act, like you can, but like you have to remember that like it's still a film, like like
yeah, that's true.
It did so much with stuff that like makes sense, and like the first 2/3 are like, whoa, this shit like seems like this is real science, like that all of this can happen. And it's not till the last third where it kind of starts breaking, and like you get the story, like the movie magic of it comes in to be like, hey, these things are all like, this is how we're gonna tie it all together. And it's like you can choose to break that apart, and like we just did, there's a lot of things that we can sit here and laugh and point at, but at the end of the day, like as a film, like the story I think is great, and it's a super memorable one that looks beautiful. This movie just, to me, has everything, and is not only my number one on this list, it's super high on my like list of like great movies.
Yeah, I think it's also just because I'm such a big sci-fi fan as well, and every one of those moments on screen, it's like you just want to rewatch them because they're just they're so beautiful, and like cinematography wise, and I've always like had this affinity, just like my dad is, of like the little tiny ship just amongst a sea of nothing. I think is always incredible. Also, I don't know. Tomorrow I might like this movie more than Inception, but I feel like
I feel like you're
trolling us. I feel like Greg, he's trolling us. He keeps going like this. I couldn't agree more with you guys. What you guys are saying, I love everything about this movie. Number two.
These movies are both like, I agree with Andy. Like they're both so good, and they both have immense flaws, and they both have immense accomplishments. But
I mean, I just think that like the flaws are not rooted in. Well, I mean, they get to the point where it's so opinion based, where it's like you don't like the whole love thing, and like
that's not my biggest problem. My biggest problem is once the reality breaks and then it becomes theory, then it's just like the theory that they go with to me is not.
By the way, all of this is theory.
Entertaining,
like,
and it's weird. And
we're actually able
it's not even just the end of the movie. It's like the end of the movie that affects the whole movie of how they got there every single step of the way.
I think any inconsistencies you're seeing is by nature of it having to be a film. Like if this could have been 6 more hours,
we're reviewing.
Could have done it, of course. But I think if you really want to start picking apart like inconsistencies, it's not. To me, it's just it's more in the fact that they wanted to wrap this up a little earlier than Inception, where Inception you start asking questions. You're like, none of this makes sense, and I guess you can chalk that up to him being like, yeah, it's all up into interpretation. But at the same time, I'm like, I don't understand the rules of this, and we keep changing them, and I feel like it's a lot more flawed than anything. I don't see Interstellar being flawed at all. I think there are some scenes that could have been a little bit more fleshed out, but I think that Inception, to me, watching it back a third time, I was like, this movie's not getting me. I have no touchstone to this. It's not evoking any emotion other than confusion and like some hype moments and some boredom. Whereas Interstellar, I'm like, this is powerful. And it's powerful because you have a director and a team who have evolved to the point where they really understand how to use this medium in such a deep way that just even those things Andy's talking about, those moments, those perfectly composed scenes where you feel so alone because you see this tiny little bit of the speck of humanity amongst the sea of nothingness. That in and of itself, I'm like, give that motherfucker an Academy Award, because that evokes so much emotion on such a deep level that's not words. It's just, a visual in your brain and you get it. It's it's so beautifully done. I'm with Kevin. This is one of my all-time like top favorite movies.
Yeah, I really just feel like the way they tied it all together with this like multi-dimensional aliens or whatever it was, or us, but they're not human anymore, so that doesn't matter. Being the cause that like all they have to do is plant the wormhole, right? And like how that all creates this loop where Matthew McConaughey is giving himself the message and understands that he has to do that. I think that like that all ties things together so beautifully, and like it's unrealistic, but like who knows? You know what I mean? Like there are sound theories, right, to a lot of this stuff.
Well, it kind of goes in like again, my brain, I'm not smart enough to understand or comprehend this stuff, but I just watched about a 2 week or 3 weeks ago Arrival, and it plays with the same concept of like there being these beings that just think in they don't think in linear time. They're just displaced from that. And so they don't know how to communicate with people who are moving forward in a linear fashion. And that movie plays with that paradoxical, whatever the bootstrap theory is as well, where she's like, I'm telling myself stuff from the future, and I don't know how this is even possible, because theoretically in a linear space it shouldn't be possible, but it is because those extra 2 dimensions allow that to be something that happens, right? Because if you're not tethered by time there is no beginning or an end. So the end of where the fifth dimensional beings could be could be the beginning of wherever else. You know, we're just because we're seeing it going one way doesn't mean that that's how it is. Maybe they started back there and they're moving backward in time. Who the fuck knows? It's all theoretical, crazy, insane stuff. But it's so thought provoking. It's stuff that I would literally spend hours talking about.
What I love so much about Interstellar is like they do a cool job teaching you these things. Like when there's the moment where one of the scientists is like, well, no, what, like, if for these beings, like, time is could be a physical dimension. So going to the past could be literally walking down the hill, and going to the future might be a mountain that, like, they could go and make changes or, you know, affect it. And it's just something like that. It's crazy. It's the way they boil down the science into a way that, like, makes sense, and, like, them not just making it feel like it's exposition. I
totally disagree, because the exposition there is like, I feel like when they say it could be this, then it could be anything, and it could be what they show us. So
yeah, but these things are like,
that's
not to say that in Inception, it's not possible to go into someone's dream state and invade their brain. That is something that's possible.
That wasn't the point of that movie, though. I feel like the point of this is
that's all set up to make the Tesseract make sense.
Science. Yeah,
that's Tesseract. Like that. Sorry, that's set up so that when we get to the Tesseract, we can be like, oh, somehow they figured out how to make this weird dimension that has all this time crushed together, compacted there, that someone from the third dimension could move around and translate a message.
Yeah, I mean, Tim, to your point, yeah, I'll, like the Inception stuff. I don't want to get into the weeds too much, but yeah, it is rooted in some science. It's possible, but to me, I think it's just more believable because of all the stuff that me and Kevin have read about space travel and gravity and things like that. I mean, I'm sure if you studied dreams, you'd be like,
no.
I mean, I'm not saying it's possible. I'm not saying it's possible. You're not listening to what I'm saying at all. It's fine.
Sorry, I'm sorry. Say your point, because I thought you just said it's possible in both worlds.
No, that's not.
Is that what you said?
I said the opposite.
What did you say? I
was saying the point of Inception is not that it's possible. Like, the point of Inception was them coming up with cool concepts and rules to follow to make a cool creative thing, whereas the point of this movie was trying to follow through a sci-fi thing of things that could actually happen, which, right, to me, is where it breaks.
No, I don't think that. I think it was to ground it in things that could possibly happen and tell a narrative story, and then make you wonder what else we don't understand, which is why the love theme comes in. I think that, to me, that's where Inception does fail, is that it doesn't seem rooted enough in reality to actually sell the narrative to me, where they do keep having to come up with these rules, and the rules are like a fucking, you know, there's a rule book so thick that has to go along with Inception. Whereas this one, I'm like, and granted, again, this is because this happens to be something that I have a little bit of an interest in, so they don't have to explain it. To me, when they start explaining gravity to me, I'm like, I kind of have a touchstone for that, so I don't feel the need to have that explained to me. But I also think there's a lot of stuff in Interstellar they don't bother explaining. They don't bother explaining what caused the blight or what's happening. They just go, hey, this is where this is at. We got to get out of here. And that's good enough. Where they could have gone into like the concept of global warming and we fucking ruined the world and this is what we did. We can't,
even like over farming causing like
whatever
erosion that causes
the idea of why, like a perfect example of that is like, whoa, wait a minute, you just introduced a really big theme here where you said we've rewritten history. That could be a whole movie all to its own. But he's like, fuck you, and he uses that great narrative device to talk to introduce just for 1 second what happened to the mother. That's the only reference we really get to like what happened to Murph's, to his wife and to Murph's mother, where he's like, that science, one of the things they discovered on those missions was a thing called an MRI machine, which if we fucking still had today would have caught the cyst in my wife's like brain and would have fucking saved her life. And it's like all those moments are like, those could have been movies all to themselves, but they're not, because we don't need to necessarily explain that stuff. We kind of have to.
Nolan's good, man. He's good at this shit. Put this shit at number one. I guess.
Where are you going, Andy? All right.
Number one. Number one's Interstellar. Number two is Inception. Number three is Prestige. Number four, Memento. Number five, Following. And number six, Insomnia. Next week, we're closing out the current run of Nolan movies with Dunkirk, one that I haven't seen yet.
Yeah, the only one I haven't seen.
Very excited. Less than 2 hours long.
It's a very different Nolan film. I'm excited.
Don't expect anything like anything.
There is still a Tesseract though, so that's important.
Oh shit!
Oh.
Yeah,
get hype for the Tesseract.
The glasses added so much and so little at the same time.
Did he put his glasses on before he did the shield?
Look at his glasses though. Give us a little peek, Greg. Come on, give us a little peek.
Until next week.
The ammonia, Greg. The ammonia. Don't do it.
Love you guys. Bye.